has one of his kids come.
All right, so I call, I don't know what date is this, March 28th in the wetland meeting to order. Okay, first we'll do introduction. So Kathy, you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, we'll go in.
Kathy Galbus, recording secretary.
Dave McCollum, in the Wetlands agent.
Neil, let us go down.
Nicholas Jordan, commission member.
Danielle Monroe, commission alternate.
Pat Parafort, what is it?
You're the chairman.
Chairman, thank you. I never know the word.
Craig Johnson, vice chair.
Laura Ferguson, commissioner.
Okay, just one piece we like to do before we start, Mr. Olson.
Sure.
Would you like to-
Just trying.
I'll just do everything
I just wanted to ask if we could take a minute to remember.
So the camera can see you. I apologize.
I just wanted to ask if we could take a moment to remember Dan O'Grady, who passed away this morning. Dan was a lawyer in Bethel since I started practicing in 1995. Served as town attorney, as probate judge, and I think he'll be missed in the community.
Absolutely. Let's just observe a moment of silence. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so just to follow the agenda. The first on the agenda is public hearing for Stony Hill Road 48-50.
Good evening. My name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney with an office here in Bethel at 275 Greenwood Avenue. My firm name is Land Use and Conservation Counsel. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Upstream Properties, represented by Richard Cusa sitting here, as well as other principals who I believe are on the Zoom or will be shortly. This is a continued public hearing. At the last hearing, we told you we were waiting for comments, and we've since, I think, gotten all the comments that we're going to get. We provided on March 7th and last week a set of responses, including to your staff report. We provided an updated drainage report. We provided some revised plans, and we were waiting on an updated report from Red Pierce, your engineer, which we got this afternoon. So what we're going to do tonight is our engineer, Rock Emond, is going to go through the plans that were revised and submitted to you and talk about those revisions and talk about the comment responses we made. Obviously, we have a few comment responses to do with Red Pierce. We think they're all cleanup items, but that's to be seen. So let me turn it over to Rock. We also have Matt Sanford, who is our wetlands expert here tonight. To answer questions. Rock.
Rock Emmond, Associate Civil Engineer with SLR International Corporation out of Cheshire, Connecticut. Just going to share my screen.
Should be enabled, Rock.
Beautiful. 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 Everything's working wonderful.
Right there.
First time through. So the largest change since the plan set that you had seen earlier is during P&Z, we had received a comment from the fire marshal, which had a concern with the proximity of building B located in the correct. It was approximately 6 feet away from the retaining wall that was proposed. And in order for a ladder to be properly fixed, he needs to be at least 12 feet away. So we adjusted the location of building B, moving it closer to Stony Hill Road, further away from Copper Square. This resulted in a net decrease of 1 parking space for approximately 180 square feet. That is actually, once again, a further reduction in the amount of impervious part of this project, which once again, kind of solidifies the drainage. In conjunction with that, we received comments from Dave, the inland wetlands agent, and some of them were in regards to the upland review areas. Those were since, I guess, called out on the sediment erosion control plan, and I can hop over to that. And I know it's really hard to see on this. Actually, it's the grading and utilities plan. So right over here, I know you can't really see that, but one of the comments that was made last meeting was having an upland review off of the pond to our west. So we have a on-site upland review activity of about 0.1 acres or 4,300 square feet or so. And then an off-site activity within the upland review for the removal of the existing sanitary line that bisects our property, as well as relocation of that sanitary line, and technically the relocation and diversion of the drainage for the two, I guess, biodepression areas struggling or straddling our property line to the north. This is approximately 0.03 acres of disturbance.
Rock, this dashed line here, is this the upland review area line?
That is correct.
So you can see just this tiny corner of the building and the site work associated with it.
And once again, that's 100 foot up for the view.
From the pond, that's
From the pond.
offsite.
And we're being a little conservative with that. The surveyor had provided the water surface elevation of the pond. But he also gave us a couple contours above that. We're actually going to the higher of the contours. So it is a little conservative with the amount of activity within the upland review. But once again, there's no direct wetland activity proposed in this area, as well as no direct wetland activity proposed in the eastern portion of the property. Oop, I have the pages. Which is approximately 1.5 acres of disturbance or activity within the upland review. And once again, there's no direct wetland activity along the drainage ditch. Some other comments that were made were a cut fill analysis that was thrown onto the sediment erosion control plan in the top right corner. We have approximately 5,000 cubic yards of cut, 4,600, or I guess 4,700 cubic yards of fill, which is actually really, I mean, that's pretty damn good. About 330 or 355 cubic yards of net cut. So that's net export from the site, which is both very good for just in general with fill costs right now being as high as they are. Additionally, with that, the wetlands agent requested that the NRCS soil types as well as the soil boundaries were thrown onto the plan. These are generated through the web soil survey. And they've been demonstrated on this plan. Additional comments were written and responded to in a comment response letter, which I believe has been distributed to everyone. And obviously, if there are any comments or questions on those comments and our response to those comments, we'd be happy to address them. As it pertains to the wetlands themselves, the drainage ditch and the pond, I will pass it over to Matt Stanford to just give a brief overview of the activities and functions values regarding those two, especially when in regards to pond. I know in the first meeting, we had mostly addressed it, but I believe the wetland impact assessment was updated to specifically address the pond and basically saying that we have no adverse impacts to the pond. Matt.
Okay, for the record, it's Matthew Sanford with SLR. I'm a professional wetland scientist and registered soil scientist. I'm not going to go through the drainage ditch again. I think we've explained the functions and values of that drainage ditch comprehensively, both during the public hearing process as well as in the documentation provided to this commission. One of the questions that did arise was those activities that are proposed within 100 feet of the man-made pond that's located off-site west of the project. That man-made pond serves a couple of functions for the property to the west. Part of it is obviously an aesthetic feature for that particular property, but it also serves as stormwater management for that property. So those are its primary functions and values for the property located off-site and to the west of our project. It has been dredged, I believe, in the past. It's controlled by an outlet control structure, so it's been manipulated through anthropogenic activities, and it will continue to function as it does today with this proposed redevelopment. In terms of the stormwater for our site, I think Rock has explained that under the current conditions that are out there today, there are 2 catch basins that did direct stormwater runoff towards that pond. So under the previous development that was here, there was stormwater runoff that would collect in the parking lot and then get directed into the pond. Under this redevelopment project, those 2 catch basins are going to become abandoned and removed. And the water associated with the new redevelopment is not going to be actually discharged to the pond. So the way I look at it from a wetland perspective is that from a water quality perspective from our site, we're actually improving the condition by not pushing our water or discharging our water into that pond. So in general, we believe we have an improvement over what the conditions are today out in that existing pond. We have no adverse impacts to the pond itself. It's well off site. In my professional opinion, there will be no adverse impacts to the pond that is associated with the redevelopment of this property.
That's it. Thanks, Matt. That's all we have for tonight, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Peter. Dave, you have any questions?
Yeah, and I'll just jump right ahead of the commission's questions, because I want to try to keep the meeting moving along with what we have going on tonight. So yes, there was a response that was received from SLR regarding some feedback I had for my comments. Thank you very much for that. And I don't want to dive too much into what that entails, just because there's the engineering component, which I believe Wright Pierce is going to be addressing or made comments to in the response that the applicant just received this afternoon. The 2 parts that I'm going to get into, which which SLR just mentioned, where are what we're doing with stormwater outside of the area where the culvert system is going to take the stormwater, i.e. the area of the property that is behind the 2 buildings, the 2 largest buildings on the property, if I'm getting my square footages right, on the northeastern or towards the northeastern property line, those subsurface gravel wetlands that some of you saw when we looked at the site when we did that site walk. And then for the intermittent water course, the drainage ditch on the other large property line behind the other, that larger building and the other building on the other side of the property. I'm looking at what's going on with snow, which isn't necessarily stormwater per se. Right. So it is to my understanding, and I'll have the applicant jump in if I'm speaking out of school per se, that the subsurface gravel wetlands that are behind or that would be behind where those 2 buildings are proposed will be modified to some extent. Is that correct?
Yes, the grading, which was reduced since the original application was filed, will be adjusted.
Right.
The actual functions of the 2, what I'll call biodepressions, will remain the same, as we are essentially meeting the volume that they were originally designed for by doing these adjustments. We're taking watershed out, which actually decreases the need of volume in, but we're maintaining what is actually there. Therefore, there is actually more retention storage for those biodepressions than there was with the development if they were going to be drained directly to it.
Right. Understood. And I don't ask that question so much for the volume aspects, because that's more of the engineering nitty-gritty, which is why we have Wright Pierce working on this review for you guys. This is part of what I have been trying to allude to with the comment that I had made in terms of where that water is going, which I believe is still towards that man-made pond off-site. If we are going to be regrading in that area, and if we are, if the intent is to have the conditions post-construction emulate what is out there now, my question was, how does that affect what's in the water going towards the pond? If there is any effect at all. I'm not sure if SLR had meant to address that in their response that they had made, but that was something that I had looked for. And then to get to the other side of the property with the snow, there are going to be snow events that someone will have to come in to make sure that people can still access the site with their vehicles and what have you. There was a comment that was made that had mentioned something about the method for how that would be treated. And I'm going to, where am I here? Just forgive me, bear with me 1 second. Comment C5 of headwater streams. It isn't so much headwater streams, it's just where it is in the response, but I'll quote SLR's response to that. Quote, no snow storage is proposed as part of the project plans. Stormwater generated from small snow events, less than 1 inch of snow, will be allowed to melt and be treated by on-site water treatment systems. No pollutants are expected to be introduced, end quote. I wasn't sure what on-site water treatment systems meant. So I'd be happy to have you explain that to me.
So essentially, what's going on is when snow, rain gets into the catch basins, they're being carried or being conveyed to the catch basin. We're proposing deeper sumps, so sediment, any sort of pollutants usually settle down into the sump. Anything that goes through that is then going through the water quality unit, or the I believe we're specifying a contact unit, which is taking out 80% of the total suspended solids. That's essentially taking out all the heavy materials. Additionally with that, there are the isolator rows, which are allowing for the water to dissipate and kind of settle out. And the pollutants, if there are any left over from the treatment train that's been going on, is being diluted and settling down. That's all going to basically just fall into the isolator row. Once it gets through there, it's going to be in the detention system, which when the volume goes and increases, that's all going to dissipate because you're increasing the amount of water that's actually going to be within the detention system. And to your point, if we are, let's say we're using just salt, salts eventually, they're going to mix with the water. It's going to get into the catch basin. It is going to go through that, but it's going to be diluted by the amount of volume, by the amount of storage that we're proposing for the project.
Okay, so that's essentially saying that the stormwater management system that's underground in the middle of the property is going to
Dilute the amount of pollutants.
Right. So let me ask this, and I'm asking this for the commission's understanding. When that snow is plowed, none of it will be in the direction of that intermittent water course, that drainage ditch, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I asked that because that wasn't on.
As we say, any snowstorm larger than 1 inch will be trucked off site required.
Okay. But
Dave, I'm sorry, I'm just confused. Is it trucked off site or is it going into that drainage ditch
Trucked off
between the two properties?
Trucked off site.
Thank you.
And
Sorry,
Ralph,
Dave, I need clear on that.
can you address David's first comment, which is where the stormwater goes offsite, not, i.e. not to the pond?
And essentially what's happening with, and this is within the watershed maps that are part of the drainage report, we are showing that all the water essentially is contained within our site, except for maybe the sliver between the retaining wall and the pond. That's going to be lawn, so that's not going to be it's not a pavement area. Additionally, you're looking at curb lines, which is basically trapping water, and that's going into the catch basin. So we're containing all that water and essentially moving that water away from the two biodepressions as well as the pond, trapping that in the underground detention system. And then that water is going to go to the culvert, which is located near Dibblesbrook.
And the culvert leads to the sewage?
No.
it leads to an existing water course.
The existing water course, which is the Dibbles Brook.
That's across the street, right?
Correct.
Other than that, I didn't have any other comments at this time, other than before the commission closes this public hearing, I would recommend that you wait for SLR to, or for Wright Pierce to confirm that SLR has addressed all of their comments. I would assume that SLR would get on the comments that they just received this afternoon in due process.
Correct.
If the commission is so inclined, just out of the interest of trying to keep things moving, because this isn't the only decision that we're going to have to render. You know, at whichever coming meeting we do that at, it may make sense for you to schedule a special meeting 2 weeks from now to give you guys essentially more time. And you'll see how that will play in with other applications that we have on the agenda tonight. But that's all I have for you.
We would be very grateful if you did that, because we think we can close up our loop with Wright Pierce in the next week and have nothing outstanding. So hopefully we'll be able to close and maybe decide at that special meeting. It'd be great for us.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions?
Nothing additional.
I'm good. Any objection to closing the public? I'm sorry, is anyone from the public here to speak in regards to this application? Okay. Any objection to closing the public hearing tonight?
Well, we're not closing the public hearing.
I thought we were closing the public hearings. Okay.
No, we're going to do that. I would recommend that we don't do that until we have something from Wright Pierce that confirms that SLR has addressed all
So
of
can
their
we make a
comments.
decision the same night that we close the public hearing?
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, I was confused with that. Okay,
Do you need a motion to push this to a special meeting in 2 weeks?
I think we need to discuss
Yes,
having a special.
But
meeting.
we're putting the cart before the horse, because I would have us do that under new business. Good question, though. Glad you paid us.
So we'll leave this open until the next meeting.
What's that?
We'll leave this open until the next, continue this on until the next meeting, whenever that might be.
Right. What I would say is, before we go on to our next item on the agenda,
Okay.
is that you ask the applicant to consent to give you more extension time. Right now,
I'll provide a letter.
we have used 28 days of our 65.
Okay.
And to get to our next meeting, we would need 14. So we have
Are you
plenty
agreeing
of
with that, Mr.
extension time
Olson?
to do that.
I will, hopefully it's April 11th.
Yes.
And what I'll do is I'll do a quick little letter and email it to David before I walk out of here.
Thank you. So now, do I make a motion that we continue or we just continue?
Just state for the record that it's
Okay,
continued
so we will
to,
continue this till our next meeting.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
next on the agenda is 49 Plum Tree Road.
And for this one, before we start with the presentations, I'm gonna have our vice chair reading 2 notices, which I'm gonna put up on the screen. If you just bear with me. I like to think I'm good with technology, but sometimes gets the best of me. There we go. Okay. So we need this one. And we'll also need this one. Okay. So I'm going to confirm everybody out in cyberspace can see this when it gets on my screen. Okay. And I would just say that there's no need to read the hyperlinks. All you have to do is just read what's in black. All right, so whenever you're ready, Greg, take it away.
So, yeah, first time doing this.
Just read it.
Just read it.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
We're accepting and adding these in
So,
for tonight.
so for a public hearing, they have to be noticed in the Danbury News Times. And they have to be noticed, or I also noticed them with the town clerk's office. The notice that is before you is the notice that was posted to the Bethel Municipal webpage. And then the second notice that you'll read was the one that was posted to the News Times.
Okay. So the Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission will hold a public hearing on March 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom web-based video conferencing to hear the following: Town of Bethel, number 49 Plum Trees Road, regulated activities. Proposed regulated activities include construction of 5 buildings, rain garden areas, parking areas, and associated site improvements within 100-foot regulated upland review area. At this public hearing, interested persons will be heard and written communication accepted. This property can be found in the tax assessor's records as map 71, block 110, lot 26, dated this 15th day of March at Bethel, Connecticut.
And then the next notice will be. I'm gonna put it up on the screen for you.
Dave, while you're doing that, since this meeting is being recorded and that's being on the Fed, does it really have to be read into the record?
It should be, yes. Okay,
All right, this is a legal notice that appeared in the Danbury News Times, March 16th and March 23rd, 2022. The Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission will conduct a public hearing on March 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in Meeting Room D of the Bethel Municipal Center and via Zoom web-based video conferencing to hear the following: Town of Bethel, 49 Plum Trees Road, regulated activities. This application can be found on the Town of Bethel Municipal website or by contacting the Bethel Land Use Department, 203-794-8578, dated this day, 15th of March, Bethel, Connecticut. That's
Patrick Fairford and the Wetlands Commission. I'm sorry, it's really small.
writing that.
Oh, yeah. You know that's me.
Okay,
All right.
So who do we have representing? 49.
49 Plum Tree Hill Road, Doug. You can represent, we're all set.
Well, is that, I think the record said 5 buildings, Dave?
right, so, my apologies, I'm just realizing that now. I think that part of the public notice, was, how do I say this? That part of the public notice, I don't think was put on the clerk's website. That was left on the PDF that I pulled up in error. It should not have said that, because that's obviously what they're not here for. They're here for a water treatment plant facility. And more so, it was the legal notice on the News Times that takes precedent. The other one that's posted in the clerk's office is just a formality, so
Okay.
that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, I was looking.
Yeah, I understood.
Five buildings.
It caught my eye too.
Me too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You have my card here for the record.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Marius Jedrzejkowski. I'm the Senior Project Manager for Wright Pierce. I'm located in Middletown, Connecticut. And I'm here with online Barry Parfit, who's also Wright Pierce, and also Larry Wozitsky. Both Larry and Barry have been heavily involved in this project, so they'll help me with the presentation. So I'll start with the introduction about the project. So, give the commission a history, why the project is needed. So Town of Bethel currently operates on 3 different separate water supplies. Maple Avenue well field, the Chestnut Ridge water treatment plant, and also the Eureka Lake water treatment plant. And as you can see, the Bethel has been really growing. There's a lot of people moving into town. And, the town really has been making, good strides to make improvements to the water system. They've installed 2 water storage tanks, the Eureka Lake water storage tank, the Chestnut Ridge water storage tank. and also, upgrade a lot of the pump stations as well. However, the town has been really looking for additional water supplies. As the people moving in, there was need for additional water infrastructure to be built. So this project has been in works for over 20 years. So the town has been looking for, a good water supply, with the town boundaries. And, this particular area here actually, came up with, a lot of good water, good yield. And, we actually came in here and assisted the town with obtaining, permits for the project. And we found really good water, water source in this area. However, the water that was found needed some treatment, needs to, has iron manganese in it. So we need to basically remove iron manganese from the water. So it's, it's good water to drink for the population in Bethel. So the project includes installation of a water treatment plant. There's already an existing well that was drilled on site. The water treatment plant is approximately 62 feet wide by 78 feet long. It's going to have 3 filter units inside that basically going to treat iron manganese. 3 iron vessels that remove, the iron manganese from the water, and then the water will be chlorinated and sent out to the water distribution system. The project also includes installation of a transmission main, 6-inch water transmission main that will run along the existing access road to the site. And also there's going to be a small 3-inch force main because the facility is going to have a small bathrooms and have a laboratory for the operators to take water samples. So all the water from the drain system go out to the sanitary pump station is going to get pumped to existing sewer on Plum Trees Road. So that's kind of the background of the project. And right now the project has been 95% designed. As part of the extensive permitting process, we actually had to go through the state of Connecticut DEP to get a diversion permit. I believe a copy of the diversion permit was provided to the town, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, also to the Conservation Commission, and that was obtained in 2019. So we needed to do extensive studies to demonstrate to the state of Connecticut, also the town of Bethel, that taking water from this aquifer is not going to really deplete the existing wetlands or the stream or the east swamp brook along the proposed project area. So it's, again, that diversion permit was obtained in 2019. And since then, we've been working with the Town of Bethel Public Utilities Commission to develop, the site, come up with the required equipment, the pumping requirements for the project, and how we're going to connect it to the existing system. So at this point, I'd like to turn over to Barry, who can give an overview of the project and where the proposed activities will take place.
Thank you, Marius. Barry Parfit, professional engineer with Wright Pierce. And what I'll do is I'll try to share my screen if allowed.
It should be enabled, Barry.
All right, thank you. Okay. This sheet here that was submitted with the application shows an overall view of the site from Plum Trees Road all the way back to the proposed treatment facility, which is here. Some of the features that are already there, the Parks and Recs building is down here. The athletic fields are here and also over here. The wetlands, the delineated wetlands are highlighted here in green for you to help make them visible. And so our project, as Mary has described here, the well actually for this project is back off this corner of the building, right about in here. I'll switch over to a different sheet here. It shows it. Here's the building in the back, and the well is actually right here. That's the well that will be pulling from and treating the water. The water will then go into the building, go through the treatment system, and then after it's been treated, we'll go into a distribution main, 16-inch pipe that will go all the way out along the road to Plum Trees Road. The other site features are 2 large storage tanks, 40,000 gallon storage tanks. These 2 tanks will be covered, but will be mostly just below ground, just below the existing elevation, but then covered with soil and seeded in order to just keep them to minimize the view. So these tanks are used as part of the treatment process. They will receive backwash water and then also allow backwash water to be settled and then reused in order to save as much water as possible. Other features are a generator on site and propane tanks for the mechanical systems. There's a small depression in the back of the building here to compensate for the fill within the 100-year floodplain. The wetlands are along here and over on this side. As part of our working with Dave during the design process, one comment that we addressed over here was the overflow. Each of these tanks has an overflow. In case of an emergency, it's not likely that these will overflow, but in the case that they do, we added a manhole, basically like a dry pit, in order to collect that, in order to buy us some more time, buy the town more time in order to address the problem before it spills over into a riprap splash area, which is close to the wetland line here. Also, there's a sanitary pump station located here that receives the sanitary flows from the building and will also go all the way out to Plum Trees Road. I'll switch over to the next sheet here. This sheet shows the sanitary force main going along here and the water distribution line going along here. As part of this project, we're going to be basically replacing in kind a culvert that's out there between these two fields. As you drive out there, there's like a section right in here that is basically you're going between wooded areas, and there's a culvert under there. It's hard to notice because it is kind of covered over now. And so what we're going to do is basically replace that in kind as part of this project. We're not making it bigger, just reestablishing it in order to allow it flows to go through between wetlands from the north and south. It generally flows to the north though, to the brook. I'll switch to the last page here with this shows the connections going all the way out to Plum Trees Road and connecting to the existing water distribution and sanitary sewers out here. That's an overview of the project. No, Marius, if you want to have Larry discuss any other details or anything else you want to cover.
Yeah, Larry, if you could maybe discuss some of the erosion controls measures and how we're going to protect the wetlands and, work within the area, project area would be great.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Larry Rozecki. I'm a professional engineer, also working with Wright Pierce on this Bergstrom Well project. As Barry described, the application and the site plans, I helped with putting together the site engineering report, some of the drainage computations, the water quality volume, the water recharge calculations, all within the application package. I also worked with our CAD designers to show the silt fence and best management practices around the perimeters of the limit of work. Most of those comprising of silt fence and straw wattles. The areas are also kind of defined by the proposed tree lines around the perimeter. One thing to note is the site is relatively flat. There are no real steep slopes. So perimeter controls are primarily the most BMPs that will be deployed during construction. There will be some filter fabric around the water storage tanks, as Barry described, to stabilize that areas until the lumen seed germinates. But those will be biodegradable and and eventually, sow into the soils. With regard to the culvert, one thing to note is the water and sewer force main will be going underneath the culvert. So that's kind of why we're removing and replacing it. While that work's being conducted, it makes sense to improve it at this time. So that temporary disturbance will be really the only work within the wetland area, and it's pretty much just right up to the edge of the head walls on both the inlet and outlet sides. And all of those areas and descriptions are provided within the application. Within the report, we demonstrate that there's no increase in peak discharge The BMP selected to mitigate the increase in impervious area is an infiltration trench. And that area, Barry, if you could just show the building plan. That area is around the perimeter of the foundation. It's a 4-foot wide under drain system to collect the clean rooftop runoff. So there's really no pre-treatment, but that'll be infiltrated into the ground, provide stormwater recharge, as well as to, like I said, mitigate the increase in impervious area. The gravel area, gravel drives to remain. There is a little bit of impervious pavement to the right of the building by the generator and propane tank. That's for deliveries and employee parking. And there's a small water quality swale to pre-treat the runoff from that area prior to overland flow to the wetlands to the right of the page. So there is some pre-treatment BMP on that side. Other than that, that'd be really there's only 2 parking spaces proposed. That would be the only area where there'd be any vehicles or any short-term parking of potential hazards. Other than that, there's really minimal BMPs. All the disturbed areas will be grassed. There will be a security fence around the perimeter of the building and parking area. So that way the public, when attending the ball fields and so forth, they'll be separate from the well facility. So pretty much within the site engineering report, we addressed the special permit criteria. We described the soils. We described the natural diversity communities. That's has been submitted to the Connecticut DEP, and we're waiting on their response and comments from them. And then, as Barry noted, we set the finished floor of the proposed building higher than the 100-year as well as the 500-year flood elevation. So the earth and fill associated with the building footprint is being compensated to the north. So we have our compensatory storage for filling within the 100-year floodplain. And I think I covered just about everything in the site engineering report. If there's any questions on the BMPs or erosion control, I'll be glad to address them.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Hey.
Thank you.
What?
So I'm going to try to keep my comments short again. I do thank Mr. Parfit and Mr. Rusecki, if I'm not mispronouncing your last name, for your comments and your descriptions on the water treatment facility that's proposed. I will say that I just got response comments from Mike Pierce Engineering this afternoon for the comments that I had sent for my review. So I look forward to reviewing those and making sure everything that I have requested was acknowledged. Just from reading it while Mr. Rusecki was giving his presentation, there didn't appear to be anything of note that was, how do I say this, that what was so outstanding that I would bring it up tonight. One thing that or a couple of things that I would have the commission consider as part of your review of this application. Development wise, you're not looking at much in terms of stormwater as some other projects that you've looked at, or volumes of excavation and fill within a regulated upland review area, because this is just a building with 2 partially buried, if I'm getting that right, Marius, water store, backwash storage tanks. So gotta make sure I have all my terms in order here. So that aspect is good from a regulated activities perspective, in that what's being proposed and in the comparative scheme of things is minimal. What you should not overlook, however, is the resources from a wetlands element that are on this site, i.e. The 7, I forget the wording that's used in the wetlands report, but there are 7 pieces of wetlands that are on this property, and you also have East Swamp Brook, which we really didn't get to see when we were out on our site walk that cold morning. I think it was February 19th, if I'm remembering correctly, but it is still very much there. So you want to make sure that anything that's being proposed within this 100-foot upland review area isn't going to end up affecting that wetlands in any way or affecting East Swamp Brook in any way. To that effect, you also want to take a look at what's going on flora and fauna wise. I think it was noted at the beginning of this presentation that this is also being reviewed by DEEP and the Department of Public Health. It just so happens that this site happens to fall within what's called a natural diversity database area. So it's an area that the state deems has habitats that support unique species to either upland review or wetlands areas. It's to my understanding that request was made. The report still has not come back yet. So I think it's worth the commission taking a look at that just to see what DEEP has to say. If there's any precautions that the applicant should take when they're building the site, if there's anything post-construction that they should be mindful for, you just want to know what that is. In terms of other things you should be looking at, yes, most of what is proposed here is just beyond that ball field. There is one thing of note that I would ask whoever's controlling the screen out in cyberspace to go to where the I'm not going to get my term correct, but the water supply pipe where it crosses where you're doing that culvert replacement.
Okay, yep.
Yes. Okay. That is one of the last elements that we had looked at on our way out. This technically, at least to my understanding and for what I read in the reports, the crossing was never defined as a wetlands area per se, but it does connect 2 of them. So I would make sure that you understand and have the applicant explain what that would entail in terms of, it's to my understanding that this would be in kind, but you want to know where everything is in association with that, i.e. the pipe that carries the water between the wetlands, where is that relative to the pipe that carries your public water supply, and then where's the road on top of that, and so on and so forth. So I would have the applicant explain that as well. I would ask as just part of a chance to get me caught up with all the work that has been so nicely given to me over the past month, to get some time to make sure everything is in order on this before we close this public hearing. That could be another thing that you could add to your agenda for your April 11th meeting. I think that makes the most sense since we have other items that need to get put on that agenda anyway. Before I get too carried away, let's get back to the culvert crossing there that's on the screen real quick.
Actually,
Yes, if either you or either Barry or Larry, I guess,
Yep.
want to address that, I would appreciate that.
yeah, I think I don't know if it's at Barry's fingertips or not, but we put together a figure in the site engineering report, and it's a color orthographic that shows the relationship of the culvert to the forested wetland area, which is on the south side, abutting the soccer field and the softball field, in the culvert itself at the roadway crossing. So there's no hydraulic connection in between the forested wetland. There's no perennial stream that runs through the culvert. It's an area, isolated land subject to flooding. So it's kind of bound by the natural topography of the baseball field on the left side, the soccer field on the right side. And then there's like a mound to the south. So there's basically a bowl created that floods, and it is a wetland as it described in the James McManus wetland report. And when the site was developed and putting in the roadway, they installed a culvert to pretty much drain, during seasonal or large storm events, this wetland area off to the north into East Swamp Brook. So the intent is to match the existing invert on both the upstream and downstream side, remove the corrugated metal pipe, and install a new HDPE plastic pipe in the same orientation, the same length. And the reason being is the new large diameter 16-inch water main will go underneath the culvert, as well as the 4-inch sewer force main. So that portion of the access drive will be over excavated, trenched approximately 6 feet. So to remove the culvert, to install both the new water and sewer line makes sense. And then after backfilling with good earthen compacted material, installed a new pipe, a new concrete head wall on both the north and south side, and have a little bit more of a defined flared end section with some geotextile fabric and riprap on both the upstream and downstream sides. So when you have a chance, take a look at that figure towards the end. I believe it's in Appendix H. I could be wrong, but towards the end of the appendices, there's a good image that kind of shows the drainage patterns with arrows. It highlights the upland wetland area, and then you can see the culvert. So I hope that addressed, the initial questions you have on the culvert.
Just one more question to add to that, if I may.
Yep.
The work that would be done to replace this culvert, that would not occur during periods of high groundwater and or high flow. That's correct?
That is correct. Obviously, the water line is kind of contingent on the progress of building construction. But if there are some timing where they could either install the culvert sooner or later, that is feasible for the reason that there will be sleeves installed below the culvert. So in the future, if the water or sewer main needs to be replaced, the pipe can be slid through. So yes, depending on the timing of the construction, the culvert could be installed either before or during when the water line, when it's being passed through at this portion of the site.
Okay, thank you. One other thing that I'm remembering that I should make note of for the commission is going back to the partially buried backwash tanks. It was mentioned that there would be, if I'm not parsing my words, an overflow component with splash pads in the event that that there is a need to discharge water in that way. It should be noted that the tanks were intentionally oversized, so that way you would not have to have that happen on purpose. It's really a fail-safe, and part of what you would want to ensure as part of how that functions is what is in that backwash water, and if there is any that ends up outside of that tank, what does it contain and where would it go? And I believe the applicant addresses some of those items in their response comments, but It should be clarified again, just for the record, and just so you guys can get an explanation while we're here.
We can just add something to that. please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the backwash tank, you can see on the right side, so basically the typical backwash cycle, it's about 29,000 gallons per day for the 3 filters. So this tank is about 40,000 gallons, so we have about 11,000 additional capacity if needed. And also what we have in these tanks, we're gonna have level sensors that will sense the level of the water. And then there's gonna be an alarm. So if the water level ever gets below the high level before it overflows, the alarm will basically sound and, alert the operator, something's going on with the treatment. We can also design in such a way that could actually turn the pumps off. So when the water level gets to the high level, you can actually turn the pumps off so there's no flow. We can kind of eliminate the overflow at all. But typically we don't anticipate these things to overflow. There's going to be instrumentation controls, computers, the tanks are oversized. So there is a lot of redundancy built into those tanks to prevent. The reason for the overflow pipe is that's required by the state. So every storage tank is an overflow pipe so that you don't pressurize the tank and it doesn't explode. But again, we're going to have a lot of different measures to protect the water from going out through the overflow pipe and going to the wetlands. And Barry mentioned over here, we're actually going to have a manhole. So if that water ever overflows, first it's going to go to the manhole. So the heavy sediment, the heavy stuff is going to settle down, and pretty much whatever's going to come out is going to be a clean liquid going up to the wetlands. And it's not going to go directly to the wetlands. There's going to be some treatment here before it gets there. But again, there's a lot of different solutions here to prevent that from happening on the project.
Where does the chlorination come into the process? Is the water in the storage tanks
No,
chlorinated?
it's
That
not
happens
fluoride.
after.
That's afterwards.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Good question. Thank you.
But apart from those comments I have nothing else to say or offer at this time.
Thanks, Steve. Commission members, anyone have any questions, comments? Nope,
No, we didn't go over during site walks. We did go over a portion of the overflow and what would be contained in the overflow water during site walk, which was very informative. So I'm comfortable with that. And the information given at that point.
What I would say is that it wouldn't hurt to have those
You know,
questions.
I'd like to
Yeah,
look at, and the flora fauna, I would like to, that's actually something I had on my notations for
Mhm.
tonight too. So
Mhm.
it'd be, if we're gonna get a write-up on that, that's something I definitely like to look at least and see.
Nicholas Jordan, commission member. I was just wondering if somebody could walk me through where the fence, the chain link fence line is again, because
Yeah, we're gonna show the chain link fence line on the drawing.
Sure.
and its proximity to the wetlands.
The chain link fence follows this pattern here with a small circle. I'll trace it out with my cursor here, but I can also highlight it as well. Goes around this basin and then around this side of the site, and then comes back around the building. So basically the chain link fence goes around this tank, around the back, the well, around the back depression, and around this parking area with the generator and the propane tanks. There's also a fence around the top of this tank, this storage tank over here.
Just around the top.
Yeah.
Okay, my concern and the reason I asked the question is just because it's really high quality wetlands site in the whole region with East Swamp Brook to the east. And there's a, recovering kind of upland woods to the northeast, and then an extensive wetlands, to the west. And I just wanted to make sure with this project and the fencing that's going on, that there would still be potential access to those, like that didn't block access. to
No, they didn't
wildlife.
block us, no.
Or, and to have, ease for the public to walk back there.
Yeah, so the fence, the fence is required, by DPH, also by the town to protect the existing building, and there's gonna be access on the right side of the fence, and we're obviously gonna clear the trees, but we're not gonna be blocking access to the back of the property. That's what you're asking, it's gonna be access,
Yeah,
to the back of the property, to the wetlands, to the brook. And
that was what I was asking. Thank you.
Sure.
And you're talking about the trail system.
Yeah.
This back there, yeah.
The trail system.
Yeah,
in the back.
absolutely, yeah, no, that's gonna stay open.
Remain open.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I'm not clear. Where's the fence? That's squiggly mark going all the way around?
Barry, do you want to highlight it, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, he tried before. I just can.
Okay.
All right, it's a squid, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's very limited.
right. So it basically encompasses the whole site.
The whole site, that's right.
So what's the time frame to put that fence in? Before the project starts, after the
No, that's
project?
gonna pretty, after the project, that's gonna be probably one of the last things they're gonna put in.
Is there a way to put it in before? And let me just explain why. You're gonna have excavators in there. Normally, I like to see a red fence, the red plastic, so excavators don't get happy and just start driving and digging. The metal fence will obviously do the same, so, I mean, either way, at the end, fine, I'll just be looking for
Yeah.
if we could include in the things, a red fence
Right.
along that section.
Yeah, I mean, typically, you know, with any contractor, he's gonna probably put a temporary fence, because he's got to store equipment there and everything, so there's gonna be fence there, it's, you know,
Okay.
like the permanent fence probably is gonna come at the end,
Okay,
because they wanna be done with the site, but I think
Go
the
on ahead.
construction, they're gonna have a temporary fencing to protect any materials they're gonna store there, any, you know, machines.
Yep.
So, you know, that side we obviously
If-
protected.
If I can speak to that question, Pat, and I
Go ahead.
think Barry maybe getting a head start on what I'm about to say with what he's doing on your screen right
Yep.
now. So this has been practiced in the Wetlands Commission before, where you will have what's called, for lack of better terms, orange construction fencing. Follow what is the proposed erosion sedimentation controls, where it's along the limit of disturbance for the project.
Yep.
So if you wanted to have a condition of approval, if you did decide to vote in favor of this application, you could add that as something that says construction fencing shall be installed along the perimeter or the limit of disturbance, whichever is the more extreme of the project. And I would say what Barry has highlighted on the screen would make sense.
right, no, absolutely.
Because you have to be able to get into the site somehow. And
Yeah,
if-
no.
and if you have some kind of perimeter fencing and surrounding where they're gonna be working.
Right.
Right,
Absolutely.
okay.
And Dave, if I could just add one thing too, in the application, we have a construction sequence in the site engineering report. And pretty much that also describes what we were just talking about, where the stake, you know, the contractor has to stake out the limits prior to construction, identify the trees to remain, to be cut down, install the perimeter controls, including construction fence. So I know it's a bit brief, but we do have a sequence, you know, on the application materials as well as on the erosion and sedimentation control notes that are on C9.
Thank you. So the chemicals that, and if I understand this correctly, the backwash pits, the two of them you got there, is how dangerous are they if they get out?
So water on the left over here, that's just clean water.
That's why there's no manhole. in it,
Right.
okay?
Well, there's a manhole, yeah, there's manholes, access manholes in here because they always have to have manholes,
Yep,
just
yep,
clean water.
the other one has-
And then this one's just gonna have basically water with iron manganese, so it's gonna be, you know, very dirty water with iron
Right.
manganese in it, you know, because that's where you evacuate from the filters.
All right, so how bad is that? I'm assuming in concentrate then getting, if it got out.
Well, I mean, iron manganese comes from wetlands, from
Mm-hmm.
natural soil, so it's really, you know, it's not gonna do any harm to the wetlands because that's really where it comes from.
Okay.
So it's not like, you know, you man-made chemicals that would, you know, pollute your wetlands.
Right.
It's really, you know, and really, if we did get out, you know, basically these things are designed so when you get the backwash, the stuff settles on the bottom, the very heavy stuff is really on the bottom.
Right.
And the liquid, the clear stuff is on top. So what you have coming up from these tanks will be the clear liquid on the top, which will be less concentrated than the heavy material on the
So this
bottom.
chemicals, the heavier,
Excuse me?
heavy? I
Well-
don't know this
well-
chemical, so it's,
Well, there's no
Thank you.
chemical, yeah.
so
There's no chemicals, it's just iron manganese, so like particles of iron manganese.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, they're gonna be
I'm
on the bottom
picturing
of it.
chemical.
Yeah.
They look unsightly, but they're not.
Yeah.
Okay,
They
thank
just
you.
smell real
Yeah.
gross.
Beautiful. I'm not a chemist. I don't know these, so. Okay,
The manganese looks like oil, but if you touch it, it actually cracks. and that's
Oh,
how you
really?
Tell the difference.
okay,
It's the first mineral that oxidizes or reduces in a wetland. Is manganese and iron, and the last one is sulfur. That's where you get the rotten eggs. No, you know you have a real well. That's the last thing.
Jim.
That's my name,
So
Jim.
Jim's a wetland scientist.
And I did the
I
flag.
didn't know he was gonna be here today, so.
Yeah, I'm here for another. But I guess it's just minerals that are found in the soil. You just happen to have a lot of them here in Connecticut.
so it's not an environmental disaster,
No,
okay, I
it's
just
not
want to make
disaster
sure
at
that, again, I don't know chemicals, so.
Bacteria love it.
So, can we also, one thing I would look for is stipulation where the crossover pipe is, if we could put red on each end of that as well,
Okay.
okay? Because again, once you have a backhoe, I know with
Absolutely.
me, I'd be all over the place with it.
Absolutely.
The other question I have, so you're running, water main through, sewer through, electrical through this driveway.
So the electrical is gonna be overhead, Barry, so,
Oh, you're going on the poles?
yeah, the existing overhead is going, I believe, to this pole. Barry, that's the last pole right there. Yeah, so we're basically adding another pole over here, we're
Okay.
gonna overhead, and then from that pole, we go underground to the
All right,
building.
so you're putting basically water and sewer in
Yeah.
the thing. Again, I'm not health department, they have to stay so far
10 feet
apart.
apart, so we have
10
10 feet apart, yeah.
You're gonna have some type of sediment control on the wetland side
Yes,
there,
along the wetland side. Mhm.
okay? What's the concern? I'm just thinking cars going in and out of it at all times. Is this done in a day, 2 days? It's gonna take a month to bury that pipe or?
The water main, I mean, it's about 1,300 feet, so it might take a couple weeks maybe to get it done,
Okay.
you know,
So my concern is if you're
Mhm.
taking a couple of 100 weeks to dig down the center of that or the side of that,
Mhm.
when you dig something, it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be a lot of fill removed.
yeah.
People coming to use the softball field, soccer field, the cars are gonna go everywhere in close to the wetlands. So is any thought be giving to people that still having access to use these fields without going in or close to the wetlands?
Well, there's really no other access way to
Safety.
this field, so,
Yeah.
you know, again, we could try to work with a contractor and try to schedule those activities, maybe when
Okay.
there was no games or limited access to the fields.
Okay,
Again, we can't really direct them what to do, but we can put some information to the drawings, you know. Basically, tell them, hey, there's, a lot of activities during summertime,
Okay.
during the games, and, he might be able to provide access on one side of the
Right.
road and things like that, so we can work
Okay.
out to the contract,
This is
And-
more.
and
I was gonna add
Another
something.
thing too
Yeah,
is,
well, I'll try to jump on this in such a way where we're kind of.
Well, there's
fits in
two. I'm
with
worried
us.
about them going into the wetlands with the cars and then the safety part, I think would be zoning.
Right,
I
it,
could comment.
sure,
Tom Villa, I'm the Public Utilities Director.
Okay,
Access is gonna be one of my comments I haven't quite yet made to Wright Pierce.
okay,
Because I understand, you're not gonna do that in the summertime while there's softball games going on.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm gonna suggest, I guess I'll just mention it here, to find out from Eileen, kind of when do they cut off the games?
Yep.
I'm assuming there's not too many games in November.
okay.
So,
They're done by then.
okay, I don't know if there's any like
September.
fall,
Yeah, it is September,
high
October.
school,
Right.
but I'm thinking he can probably get through that part where
Yeah.
he's on that road.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't want cars traveling in that wetland. I don't think they would because
Exactly.
they're gonna get stuck.
The
Right.
RV.
But I think if we limit his work in that area for those two utilities.
Yep.
Between like late October and whenever, if he
Right.
wants to do it in
Yeah, because
January
it's
when the
not a
ground is
simple
hard.
4-inch ditch you're digging. so-
Right. But
Right.
obviously, you're not gonna have softball games while he's in the middle of doing that
Perfect.
maybe 200-foot stretch of pipe.
Right,
So I think it's gonna be smart to kind of maybe
okay,
have him do that at the end of softball season and before April when they get going again.
beautiful. Okay, thank you.
and if I can just add to that real quick, I don't think it's the applicant's intent to have all of the section of pipe unburied at one time. You would have this done, or
Piece
you
by
would,
piece.
right, you would essentially be putting the filled material back as the pipe was installed.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right.
But you still have the opening, you still gotta,
Once he gets going with doing pipe, he's gonna wanna go from point A to point B.
Right.
Or
Yep.
whatever he digs that day, he's gonna backfill that day. And we're not gonna have him, we won't let him have an open trench.
beautiful. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Anyone else have any?
I have one more, just like wondering if, and does anybody know or have anything to say about whether the culvert that's there now, the diameter of it is the existing, the whole situation with the roadway? Is it sufficient? Is this an opportunity for a, like an improvement to that?
Larry, Barry, did you guys look into that?
I don't know.
Yes, we looked at the subcatchment of the wooded wetland area and the area in the 25-year storm can pass through the 18-inch culvert sufficiently.
Thank you. All right, at this point, I believe we continue the public hearing
Right,
until our next meeting, but we do not need a letter because it's within the 65 days.
right. So this one, we just, because we opened this one
Right.
tonight, we are still within our 65 days. So we have ample time.
Yep.
Really, the time is needed for me to play catch up because I just got those response comments and I want to make sure.
Not DEP, too.
Right, yes,
Yes.
and there's also that element. So ideally,
Okay,
both of those can happen before a special meeting that would be scheduled on April 11th.
so we expect DEP to be back by April 11th.
In an ideal
Good luck.
circumstance.
I can make one other comment.
I could wait a while tomorrow.
We went through the NDDB process when we did the well and also for the pilot. So we did get a reply. We can probably at least let you know what their comments were then, because I don't think they're gonna probably change too much from what they commented on just a couple of years ago.
Okay,
So I don't know if they're gonna get their
Yeah,
reply
we
back in
reached out to
time.
them just recently, Barry, we reached out to them just to see what the status was. I don't know, Barry, if you heard from them back. from
No, I
DEP.
did follow up at one point, but I have not heard back yet. So I will follow up again though.
so hopefully we have some comments back by the next meeting.
So what I would say is in lieu of us maybe not getting those comments in time for April 11th, I would recommend that the previous response that was received from the state be submitted so you guys have an idea for what they had looked at previously.
And if I recall, Marius, maybe help me out here. What they wanted was some guidelines in terms of if the contractor came across a box turtle. To basically train their workers what to do.
Is that what they found?
So
Is that all they had?
it's been a couple of years, so I think it was a turtle, one of the turtles.
There's protocols.
Pick it up his back.
So they want us to put instructions in there for the contractor to train his workers. They see a turtle, what to do.
Yeah.
Pet it, give it a name,
Bring it to Dave's office.
some lettuce.
Beth would love that. I would love that.
It's pretty crazy.
All right, so we're all set till the next meeting for this one.
Right, so
Yeah.
I would just make sure we have a consensus from everybody to continue this.
Everyone
next
is in
meeting.
favor of continuing this to our next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. Next, and thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda
Thank you.
is Constitutional Road, number 28.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Right. Get out.
Cut and paste it.
I'll be honest, that's what I was thinking.
And it's on the screen. Nice work.
Okay, you got it, Dave?
Yeah, we're good.
Good. Okay, Dr. Best, professional engineer, represent the applicant. The last meeting, there was a couple of comments that were outstanding from my peers. I think we've addressed them. The main one was doing soil testing within the drainage areas, and we did that. We revised our systems relative to that. At 7 o'clock tonight, I got Dave sent me the comments from my peers, and they have comments still regarding that. They say we're not high enough above the groundwater. So I need to go back to my notes and have a conversation with Wright Pierce to go over that. So we also provided the details for the various splash pads and things like that out there. So I think tonight, that between myself and having discussion with Wright Pierce, I think we can work through this. So I'm hoping that maybe we can get this thing done and approved tonight, and then we can have a discussion, because it's not a public hearing, so we can have a conversation with them. They, over the phone in the next day or two to get this resolved.
I think that would make the most sense. I don't see why this is something engineer to engineer that can't be reviewed. In the grand scheme of things, you're really not talking about altering the location of where these components would be. You're really not going to have to extend your limit of disturbance to get any closer to the wetlands. I was asked per your request to have a draft resolution of approval ready to go for tonight. I would say during our discussion of that, if you guys wanted to have what Doug just mentioned added as a condition where Wright Pierce has to make sure that their comments are addressed, I think that would make the most sense. We do have Barry Parford from Wright Pierce who authored those comments. Does that make sense for us to do? Is that something that we could arrange going that way?
You're on mute.
I got the nod.
Thank you. Sure, that's fine. I think the comments, the gist of it is that the infiltration system is just too close to the groundwater level that was observed in the test pit. So to get the recommended distance between them, the 3 feet from the bottom to the high groundwater level is what we're looking for. So if that can be done with the, by an adjustment of the design, great. If it might need something more than that, then that would be a different matter. But otherwise, I think if it can be an adjustment, then we could handle it by means of a conversation. Yeah.
Love the discussion about that.
Okay.
Go over it.
Very good. All right. Any questions?
Nope. Does the commission have any questions?
No. Nothing on this one.
So I would say that for our new business tonight, we'll add the discussion for this.
Do we need a motion to add this for new business?
Yes, we do.
Good. Any seconds?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Abstain? Motion carries. We'll
Okay.
add it.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Ready? Does anyone need a break right now, or you good?
Everybody good?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
Next on the agenda is Walnut Hill Road, number 115.
David, do you have the rendering or should I put it up?
I have one.
Yeah, do you want me to put it up on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Good evening, Peter Olson again. My laptop is scarfing up some juice, so we're gonna leave it back there for a moment. My firm name is Land Use and Conservation Council. I'm at 275 Greenwood Avenue. At your last meeting, you heard the initial presentation on this application and agreed to hear it tonight without public hearing, which we appreciate. So let me have Jim McManus start and go through the resource, and then we'll turn it over to Doug DeVesta to talk about civil engineering design. And you want to share?
You want to share?
Yeah, I'm getting it up. I just want to make sure, which one is this for again?
115.
Okay, thank you.
Jim's way.
Well, as he's doing that, good evening, folks. Jim McManus, certified professional soil scientist with J&M Wetland Consulting Services, offices in Newtown. I was on the site October of 2021 to do the delineations.
I have it up and I can share if you need there.
No, I'm getting it. Just gonna 2 more buttons. And we're there.
Just like to note, Mr. DeVesta got his on there pretty quick there.
It's high-tech easel.
There you go. Old school. Always reliable.
Could you just zoom in for me on that?
There you go. Do too bad.
We good?
Yes.
Yeah, my own.
Okay, so we have
That works. They break them all.
one resource on the site. It's a man-made pond that's associated with Dibble Brook. Put 4 flags. It pretty much follows an abrupt boundary along the bank well, it's a man-made pond with a small fringe of maintained lawn and some wet meadow, and it follows an abrupt boundary throughout. The pond, going back to aerial photos, it looked like the pond was first noted in 1970. That's when you don't have every single year, but if you look at the 1970 archive aerial photographs, you'll see that the pond was there. And if you go back into earlier dates, 34s to 51s, at least some portion of that pond was probably most likely a wetland associated with Dibble Brook. And then in the 70s, they dug it out. The soils on site are glacial outwash, sand and gravel type material. The upland soils that are undisturbed are considered an integrate, which is a moderately well-drained sandy gravel soil. The wetland soils would be a sacco, which are very poorly drained floodplain soils associated with the brook. We did do a function value assessment of this small little wetland. One other note is I didn't flag the, what side is that? Southern side? South side of the wetland. Here we go. Due to its proximity to any proposed development, there was no need to just kind of grab the area that meant something for you folks to review. So the function value, we saw about four different principal functions associated with this wetland: groundwater discharge, recharge, flood flow alteration. Obviously, Dibble's Brook kind of goes through here, sort of connected, and then aquatic habitat and some wildlife habitat. Other than that, there are some things that are there, but are not principal. All in all, you know, kind of the disturbed man-made area. It's with the pond itself, but of course it's associated with a nice little wetland community associated with Dibble's Brook. So it's not a piece of junk, but it's not the best thing in the world, at least adjacent to where the development will be happening.
I would like the Army Corps to adopt that.
Yes, it would make sense, wouldn't it? Would help. Layman's terms.
Yes.
There are no direct impacts to wetlands, but we did look at the indirect impacts, which looks at wildlife habitat, it looks at water quality things, if we have any impacts due to that. And a few things that we look at is one of the things that we look at is erosion and sediment controls, or erosion and sediment into the wetlands that can have an impact. We have a robust erosion control sediment plan designed. And also the soils themselves in the developable area are relatively gentle. So looking at those two things, and the soils themselves are only mildly erosive in general. So we don't anticipate any impacts from that. Of course, with diligent monitoring during the construction period. We also look at habitat loss through native vegetation removal. The overwhelming majority of the developable area is already in maintained lawn. So we're not looking to remove any trees. Impacts to wetland hydrology and stream flow. We don't have any impacts. We're not even going anywhere near those things. So Dibble Brook will do its thing as it always done. Water quality impacts. Mr. DeVesta will go through all that in a minute, but we have a robust best management practice stormwater management plan put together, and he'll go through all those goodies. So we are very confident that what has been proposed with stormwater management will not have any impact to the resources on and off the site. So having said that real quick, we're not anticipating with diligent monitoring, as I said, with the construction phase, we don't anticipate any short-term or long-term impacts to the resources that are on and adjacent offsite.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Doug, take it away.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Doug DeVesta, professional engineer. The subject site is a 1.9 acre parcel coming off of Walnut Hill Road with a common driveway that serves two other houses plus this lot here. The paved driveway is all the way up to the property line and coming into the property. As Jim mentioned, wetlands are located on the southern portion of the property with the pond. We are proposing a new single family residence, again, coming off a common driveway to the garage and then surfacing the house. The property was checked for a septic system, it's septic system and town water. septic system. We test holes throughout the upper portion of the property. Didn't find any really good soils. We found a good set of soils down in the lower portion of the site. We designed a septic system for a 4-bedroom house that has been reviewed and approved by the health department. So that's been approved. We are within the upland review area, which is the orange, which is the red line. So the septic system is in the upland review area. Everything else is outside the upland review area. In terms of stormwater management, we are providing a gravel wetlands, subsurface gravel wetlands. I think you've seen them up at Copper Square. We designed a bunch of those up here. We're using it for a single family residence here. Again, that's going to handle the water quality volume with inside the treatment cells, the water from the common driveway, the proposed driveway, and the front half of the house will sheet flow into the gravel wetlands, be treated, stored, and then metered out through a control outlet, and then drained out to a level spreader that then will sheet flow down towards the pond itself through the existing lawn area. Has been designed to handle the 25-year design storm, and also check the 2 and 10, and also handles the increase from the 2 and 10-year storms. So we're providing a no increase in runoff from the site itself. In terms of erosion controls, we are providing a silt fence around where they're potentially we're going to be transplanting some of the Christmas trees that are on that property, down gradient of where the proposed septic system is, and then along the upland review area, the 100-foot upland review area. We did provide, really that's kind of the overall view of the project. There were some comments.
Doug, before you go into comments,
Yeah.
can you just explain what a level spreader is?
Level spreader is a trench that consists of stone, about 18 inches wide, 2 feet deep, with a pipe, perpendicular pipe inside it. The water is going to come down the drain pipe, hits the T in the line, it's perforated, so water is going to go out. It allows the water to sheet flow out versus a point discharge. A point discharge is coming out of the pipe and discharges out, so that has more potential of erosion and things like that. But a sheet flow allows it to spread out over a larger area and won't cause the erosion to occur.
Yeah, thanks. So we
That's all
received
natural
comments.
gradient.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all just natural downhill gradient.
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
Correct. Yes, this is the high point of the property, and it slopes down towards the pond.
That's what I remember.
We received comments from staff and from Wright Pierce last week. We quickly jumped into action and provided a response in form of a revised plan, as well as responses to those comments. I'll let Doug speak to the comments themselves, but we believe we resolved all the comments that were made.
Right.
And revised the plans accordingly. So do you want to hit them real fast?
Sure. The staff comments, one comment was about the aquifer protection. And I reviewed DEP's aquifer protection area program manual. And it's a single family residence, so that doesn't fall in any of their categories. We are providing 3 propane tanks to fuel the house or to heat the house and water and stuff like that. So we are providing 3 propane tanks above ground. There's no materials excavated from the upland review. I'm just gonna comment, so you can understand what the comments are. Just so you can- Okay, so one of the comments Dave had was materials excavated within their upland review area. There is nothing in the upland review area, which is this area in here between the pond and this red line here. There's no excavation going on there. Just some minor regrading around the septic system and very little, I think there's no filler at all. Septic materials coming out of the septic area can be put down gradient of the area. Asked about the concrete cement truck washout area, which is provided here above between the driveway and the upper gravel wetlands. Dewatering outlet is right here, in case we hit any groundwater when we're excavating the foundation. So we have a dewatering pit there, the detail on the plan as well. Building, construction, parking, we're showing will be on the driveway, and storage material will be between the driveway and the upland gravel, the subsurface gravel wetlands. Silt fence, he asked about silt fence being planted around, placed around the plant, trees are going to be transplanted. So these trees will be transplanted, and the comment he had was, where are they going to go? Right now, we haven't made this final decision as to where they're going to go. Some will go over to 6 Pond View, which is our next application. And so maybe go between the driveway and the subsurface gravel wetlands, but that still hasn't been totally figured out just yet. If there's any invasive species on the property, they will be removed. Jim, maybe you can help us with that if we had to figure what invasive species, I think what there's a Phragmites or something along the pond edge or something.
A little bit euonymus and the fire bush, the burning bush, I think.
Yeah, something.
We'll look into it. I don't
something-
remember everything. Most of it's in lawn.
Yeah, so we can remove those things. That's not gonna be a problem with that. He asked about putting environmental sensitive shields up. We have a discussion with their client and we'll, at this time, we're not gonna proceed with the installation of them at this time, but that's something you have discussion a little bit further on that. And start and completion schedule. Once we get all approvals from the town, through wetlands, planning and zoning, building, health department, we're gonna get approval, that's when we'll start. So then our client is ready to go on this thing. So we're fighting out their bit right now. What was the other question? Number 8. Oh, about having Dave asked to have on the plan to provide a site meeting prior to construction, make sure the inspection prior to construction to make sure the erosion controls are all in place. And we do have a note, we added a note to the plan that inspection through the staff will be done prior to construction start. And then he asked about the clearing of trees and will mulch be used on site. Byproduct, I mean, property is basically clear, so there's really no really vegetation be removed. So really, there's not many byproducts from that. Regards to Wright Pierce's comments, if there's that, so I can keep track of them.
We received an updated letter from Wright Pierce just before the meeting tonight. Essentially, all their comments are addressed, except there are a couple of minor things in the second and first from the bottom.
Right.
Which I think we can deal with.
So, so I guess the question was I don't, it's on my phone, I don't have it right in front of me, so. He wants to know about a bypass for the greater than a 25-year storm on the subsurface gravel wetlands. We can provide an overflow with a grate or something to tie into the drainage system, have maybe upgrade this drain pipe a little bigger if we had to. So we can certainly take a look at that. But everything else has been, like Peter said, everything else has been addressed with their comments and stuff like that. So that's really it. If there's any comments or questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. So as noted, it's an application for a single family home on a pre-existing lot. We've responded to all the staff comments, to all the engineering comments, and we think we're in position for you to actually take action on it. It's nice and quick and easy, assuming you don't have any difficult questions for us, but we're happy to answer those if you did.
Thanks. Thank you. Got any difficult questions for him?
No difficult questions, or at least I would hope they're not, but just some things to note. And I'm gonna try to play catch up with some of the comments that were made by Doug and by Jim in that. I don't know if you guys are also aware, but these yellow pamphlets that are with your materials tonight, those were given out because you are also the agency for the town that reviews what goes on in what's called aquifer protection areas. It just so happens that we have 2 of them here in town, and one of them underlies where this subject property is located. So you guys are reviewing this from an Inland Wetlands Commission perspective and an Aquifer Protection Agency perspective. So that's why that had gotten mentioned as part of what they had discussed or had expressed to you tonight. I don't want to get into the regulated uses for that because most of them that are in there you will never see, just per what is allowed and what is not allowed per our zoning regs. But I just want you to note that when it comes to what goes on in this area, just be cognizant of that when you do go through the review of these materials, not to harp on that for too long, because to get into some of the other items that I think are of note. Yes, most of the, if not all of the site has already been cleared for previous activities. If I'm not mistaken, I think this may have been used as a Christmas tree farm at some time in the past. It could be, you know, I'm basing that off of I think one of the call outs here on the site plan, but I mentioned the excavation and fill comment in what Mr. DeVesta had mentioned too, because technically you're not excavating just for the purpose of, apart from placing the proposed septic system, but somehow you are going to have to transplant those trees. And I can't imagine you're just going to have holes left behind once those trees go out. So I would just want to make sure that when we go about introducing fill, that we incorporate that as well. It's really minor. Two other things of note. There is a buffer that is called out on the plans, and I had recommended that the applicant consider putting a buffer in between what is essentially an open lawn area and this pond here. The intent is not to limit access to the pond. You certainly don't want to deny the homeowners rights to get to that pond, especially with this being on their property. But you do want to make sure there are some riparian elements that are kept in terms of a buffer just between having a grass area and then going right to the pond. Having an area that's grassed and perhaps not mowed as often could be something that acts to that effect. So we're hoping that, or I had put in a recommendation that be made to 10 feet in width. I'm hoping that's sufficient enough to go after or to address what I'm envisioning for that area there. The last thing, which I think Doug had mentioned, is the placement of environmentally sensitive area shields. And I don't want to harp on this too much because they're this big and they would be given to the applicant no charge. We got these as a courtesy from a previous application with Toll Brothers. I think it makes sense for us to use these, especially when you're trying to protect an ecological resource such as this pond. You could have them placed on like a 4x4 foot post and have them along where that buffer would be here on the property, just so that the applicant or whoever resides at that property knows, hey, this is something that I should be cognizant of if I'm doing something out here, that, you know, maybe this is an area that I should be more passive with. I shouldn't be trying to do anything too close to the wetlands without just exercising no.
How far apart are you thinking?
50 feet.
Okay, I'm just worried with the buffer you're talking about, and these we're changing the aesthetics of the homeowner in this pond. I want to protect the pond, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't want to put this, and you're saying low grass, I definitely don't want to put like bushes in a way where you can't see the pond. Part of the reason I'm sure this person has this property is the relaxation of the pond.
Right.
And I just don't want to see a fence line with those posted.
No. So
Very permanent.
right.
During
So
construction or
what's that?
during construction or post-construction?
So these would be kept up in perpetuity for as long as they lasted.
Yeah.
And the intent would not be to prevent the property owner from getting access to this area. We could even have that interval change from something greater to 50 feet if you guys think that makes more sense. The point is, you just want to have something of note past when you guys are looking at this application, past when this ultimately gets built, that lets whoever is at this property know this is something that you guys have put some thought into when you reviewed this to make sure that there were no impacts, either direct or indirect. You just want to make sure there's some lingering memento, for lack of a better word, that kind of memorializes that. And that's why I think it may make sense to have something
Are there
like
any
this.
trees that are going to stay along the pond? Do we know?
There's no trees.
There's no trees.
course not.
What would,
It's a
think-
forgive me, this is gonna be obnoxious.
Correct.
No,
Oh, you
What
taking
would
the
keep,
Christmas
what would
trees
prevent the
out.
homeowner from just doing whatever they want to after the project is complete?
well, that in ideal world, when it comes to activities that are close to the pond, they would have the wherewithal to ask the land use department first, hey, I want to make an improvement on my property. I want to do it within X distance of the pond. Is there anything I have to go through? And depending on,
I mean, more like you're suggesting that it would be beneficial from an ecological standpoint, so there'd be a buffer there where we're asking the homeowner to leave this barrier of letting the grass grow, letting it be more natural, more habitat, more
Right.
whatever. I completely understand your rationale, but what would be their, couldn't they just not do that? Say they're going to and then not?
Would just go right to the pond and have a nice pond if it was mine.
Right, so that's what
I'm
I'm
just
saying.
thinking, I would mow it so I can walk around it, and I understand what you're saying, I'm just trying to,
That I wanna look at.
right, so,
it's not
so,
a public. I
Do
mean,
we
I
have
can
any
see.
jurisdiction to
going
make
fishing
that
in the
request? But I'm saying it doesn't actually have any. That's my question.
well, your jurisdiction is to protect the environmental resources that prompt your review in the first place.
Yes.
And in having these placed there, it may be a trigger for whoever owns this property to say, maybe I shouldn't mow that.
I got you.
And that's not to say that these people aren't gonna be able to see the pond anywhere, and that's not to say that you aren't going to have ways to get to the pond where it is maintained as grass. I think the whole area here was just shaded this way. You know, I think the intent is to have access points in mind, and I would absolutely be agreeable to that. It's just where you don't have those access points, I think it would make sense to have something like this so that those areas stay preserved.
I would agree, and I have a couple of concerns for setting a precedent, so that if you're doing it here, you're gonna do it on any applicant that has a pond.
We have asked for these in the past, just so
Okay.
you know. Okay.
This, and my mindset is, you're building a house, you're very much aware of the pond, the aspects of the pond, what you can and cannot do. It's not a public space, so you're very much aware. I mean, if it was like something intermittent, you may not understand it, but I just, again, what's to prevent us now doing this on every piece of property? I'll give you an example, my own property, okay? I have a street runoff running through it. It's closed, but if it was open, you know, I can't use either side of it and walk along it, or I have to have these posted along that street now. You know, I'm looking at a broader picture here, so I'm not looking at this one applicant, I'm looking at it like it was public space, definitely fully understand. A private homeowner with a pond is fully aware what he can, I just picture, I know if I have a pond, I'd be walking around it, I wouldn't want to be 10 feet from it, and high grass would prevent me from
Putting a
walking.
chair right there. with a
Right,
pool and I'm
so-
fishing off.
Can I speak for a second?
Yeah.
I can shortcut some of this.
That may help.
Let me just show you a picture from Jim's wetlands report. It shows you what it looks like now with some grasses. And I'll let Jim talk for a second about what he thinks an appropriate buffer might be. Then what
Thank you.
show them.
Okay, Jim McManus again. Not all of the pond looks like that. There is some that's mowed right to the edge.
Right.
There is a buffered edge right now, and that has some sedges, some rushes, some other items that grow where their feet are wet. There are some invasives in here too. We'll get rid of those. My idea would be, if you can see where my finger is, that's the wetland flag. So you
Okay.
see the wetland is actually in the mowed lawn,
Okay.
but I don't know the distance right now off the top of my head, but you know, from the flag to the pond edge.
Yep.
It looks a lot like that,
Okay.
with maybe areas half as wide as this table. Path to access.
Okay.
Various locations.
Right.
That way, it's not too high, you're not gonna obstruct the root view, so the homeowner's gonna mow it all down. It has some functionality as a buffer, as a filter, but you can still push your chair, your cooler in a rod and still do your thing. It's a thought.
So we're okay with that, as Jim described,
You're okay with it, so.
some kind of a low grass buffer with some access points. I think that
And you
works.
can you can maintain it.
Right, and-
You don't maintain it every week, but you don't have to have it grow up. You know, at the end of the season, you mow it down to the ground, so then it comes back up.
Okay.
Maybe halfway through the summer, you hit it. And it keeps it at a nice level. So it's still doing its job, but it's also not impeding access to the pond and also access your viewing.
And one thing, if I may add to picking up back on this, it would be one thing if this pond, if its bounds were isolated to this property. It's another thing if this pond, especially its extent, goes on to other properties. So
Right.
by protecting this portion of this pond and having the shields in place for this portion, it's a benefit to this property and to any of the other properties. where this
I would
pond is
agree if this was public or a multifamily or a condo. Because anyone moving in may not know the uses of the pond, that sort of stuff, or the sensitivity of the pond. Anyone building or buying a house on that property, I think would have a pretty well understanding that you're not, you know, the sensitivity of that pond.
So it's a common problem that
Okay.
people don't pay attention to the law,
Okay,
you know, the statutes
Right.
and the regulations that
Right.
say you need a permit for certain
Right.
activities. Very, very common.
Right.
But we can't assume
Right.
at this stage that people are gonna ignore the law.
right,
We hope that they do it. So, you know, we don't mind putting up one of the shields, but
right.
I think when you look at distances, this is 50 feet, and if you turn it that way, that'd be like 6 of them. Seems a little like you're hitting the homeowner over the head.
Right,
I'm
So,
thinking maybe.
We might put
three.
one.
right.
Yeah, something like, yeah.
But if
I'm
we put
thinking
one
on each
post-
property line.
If we put one post in the middle,
For the
Yeah.
pond, yeah.
you know, right here, that's,
Exactly.
the homeowner's gonna get
Right.
the idea, and they don't need to be hit over the head
Yeah.
with having 6 of them there.
Yeah.
You know, so
I was
We'd be
actually
okay with
thinking
one
close
post.
to the property line, so if anyone comes in and it's on the property. So, okay,
yeah, and look, we're gonna build the house and sell it.
great.
Right, so, you know, there will be somebody else there and it will move on.
Yep.
Unlike the next one, by the way, where it's different, but, so our proposal would be, we put in one post sort of in the middle of the property with the shield on it
Okay.
that, you know, sort of gives the message to the homeowner, and I don't think they needed 3 more of them to remind them,
Right.
especially with a pond where it's obvious what.
I don't want to create a fence look, that's all.
Right.
It
Yeah.
changes the pond.
Yeah,
Okay.
my apologies for suggesting 50 feet. Numbers
Right.
get suggested and they may seem arbitrary. I just want to make sure that effect of the property owner knowing
Yep.
that this is something to be cognizant of was made.
Yep.
So if the commission feels confident that one post can do that, placed to bisect where the pond runs through that portion of the property, that's at your discretion. So.
Or if you
And I
can
think that would be an
three,
appropriate
put it on
condition of
there.
Can I
approval.
ask, or just
Yeah.
add something to that? I think, if I'm not mistaken, the property for this property does run around the other side of the pond as well.
Yes, it does.
There's a part of the property is on the other side, like the bank.
Yeah,
So you
the
can
other-
walk on the other side.
You can walk around
You
it.
can
So
walk
one
around.
on each side.
Could we put one on the other side as well?
There's no activity over there. There's just woods back there.
Yeah, just for, you know, because they're gonna be walking.
That's fine, it's the middle of woods.
The deer can look at.
Are there trees there?
Because there's the aquifer, there's the well
Back
studies
into a
over
tree?
there.
Facing the wrong direction.
The aquarium property is over there, so maybe people,
Find a location that makes sense.
yeah.
No, it makes
somewhere
sense
under
if you-
those-
Yep.
Under those white pines back there, I think, because.
So, I mean, remember, the point is to make sure the homeowner's aware,
Right.
don't violate the wetlands regs by mowing this in or digging
Right.
this up.
But
So
they'll,
putting it in the middle of the woods doesn't really seem to.
Right.
Unless you
I
have
don't-
kids going through the woods playing in the
That's
neighborhood.
okay. I mean, why not?
Kids are okay.
Kids are kids.
to my knowledge, it's not woods, it's actually mowed lawn
Yeah, that's
space.
what
Part of it, part of it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they're gonna go.
Give them a
over
quad.
there.
and let them run.
I would.
I just hope my
Yeah.
wife doesn't hear about it. She wants property with.
All right, if we're gonna put one up on that side, it seems to me to make sense.
On the
Especially if you're
mowed area,
building.
we'll put it up. There is mowed area that I didn't delineate, but it, back, you know, the top of the bank of the pond.
Right, so 2 might be appropriate, and that's fine as a condition of
Just,
approval.
yeah, because that side of the pond is like
Okay,
more open to
Yep.
access to it.
And this does not prevent the property owner from doing things that fall under passive recreation. I just want to make sure that's out there too.
Or farming,
I'm sorry?
or farming. I mean, let's be clear,
Or maintenance.
putting a garden around it.
True.
farming is exempt from wetlands regulations, and farming is an extremely broad category, and it includes forestry. So, you know, just to be clear, what is and is not included in the little notice.
Put it on the gate of your garden. Okay,
Growth 3.
all right. It's noted.
So I don't
Yes.
have any other comments at this time. I will say, I did not anticipate Wright Pierce Engineering to have a response so quickly for this afternoon. So what my suggestion would be is if the commission is so comfortable with having a draft resolution of approval prepared for our next meeting, I can have that ready to go and we can decide on it as another item on this seemingly becoming established April 11th.
Can't wait to
meeting.
see you there.
So I do have one question. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
does any of the commission have any questions? Okay. The septic in the upland review area, remind me the distance for clear water, how that works as a septic.
For state health code, it's 50 feet
Thank you.
from a water course.
That's what I mean. Thank you. Okay. And you're,
That was our.
Like
approved
55,
bylaw, right?
55 feet away. 60
Okay.
feet away from there.
beautiful.
Just zoom in.
The old. True and trusted.
About 58 feet away,
Perfect.
That gets your time of travel about 8 days.
21 days.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
None on this one.
Okay.
Thank you. We're not going anywhere, we got more.
Dave, I do have a question. Should we try the minds of the committee members to draft a resolution if they feel that, or
I'm sorry?
should we try the commission members to see how they're leaning of approving or denying this application, so to have it prepared for our next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so what's everyone's general consensus?
I definitely am comfortable with the proposal for next week on this property.
Feeling pretty good.
Okay. It's pretty straightforward.
Yep, I'm
Okay.
good.
Yeah, you have your consensus, sir.
Okay, so I'll have a draft resolution of approval ready to go for the next meeting, which is seemingly becoming more and more present that it's gonna be April 11th.
Getting longer and longer. Okay.
We do appreciate it. I mean, it does make things flow a lot better.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I believe we're on Pondview Drive, number 6.
David, can you share that?
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, Peter Olson again, 275 Green Avenue again, Land Use and Conservation Council again. I'm here on behalf of the Steiners, particularly Roy and Jesse. And this is actually going to be Roy's residence. He's going to move here. So he's taking very special care with this and making all the decisions as if he were going to live there, because that's what's going to happen. I do want to address one comment from the staff report regarding the aquifer protection area. After some back and forth with David, we I guess determined that the concern was that the plan as proposed was to have some underground propane tanks, because Roy didn't really want to have above ground propane tanks. And I think, and I could probably argue this both ways, that is a regulated activity under the aquifer protection regulations. Because propane is a petroleum derived substance, therefore might be considered. So instead of arguing about whether it is or isn't, we just said, okay, propane tanks are above ground now, and now they're no longer regulated activities. So that's how we resolved that. Let me have Jim do the same presentation again about the resource on site. That's a good place to start. Yep. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Jim McManus again, certified professional soil scientist. As you can see, the property in question is on the east side of the road. And let me just start from the beginning. So here's what we're gonna do. So again, I was out there on October 22nd of 2021. Did both properties at the same time. Again, there's one resource here. And what it is a mostly a wooded swamp with probably some shallow marsh areas. If you can see from my figure 1 from my report, if everybody has that. I'll hold it up, figure 1 here. So here is the subject development site right here. But then this large 4-acre, which is a large 4-acre wetland. You can see there is also associated with this property. So the wetland is sizable. And it includes Dibble Brook again. But the good thing about the wetland itself, let's jump forward a little bit. It's a wooded swamp, we all know that. And it has a considerable amount of function and value, as one would consider, one would suspect. I actually have 7 principles, functions and values. I don't really get those too often. But the good thing is for us and for you folks is that along the edge of the wetland where it is now is particularly as you get closer to this gravel driveway, it goes to the pump house. The wetland is not, I wouldn't say it's disturbed, but there shows signs of disturbance. So as you get further into the wetland, that huge 4-acre swamp, those where you're going to find most of these principal functions. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward and discuss this. Again, we're not proposing to fill any wetlands. Again, let's go through the indirect impacts. Again, unlike the other one, the indirect impacts deal with kind of like water quality and habitat and things of that nature. So unlike the other one, we have the slopes are pretty gentle, as you remember from your site walk. And again, the soils are the same, nittigrits and things like that. Fine sandy loam outwash soils, so they're moderately erosive. And we do have and Doug is going to go through this, a robust soil and erosion control plan, since we're, some of the development is obviously close to the actual boundary, and you can see the boundaries right here where my finger's following. So that's the first one. The second one is habitat loss to veg. Well, clearly we're taking down some trees, but again, as I just mentioned, the wetland as you move into that large swamp is where you're going to find most of the functions and values. So though we're losing some trees, particularly in this area, that edge is not as sensitive, quote, as sensitive to impact that as the remainder of the wetland will be. So, and also the Steiners have the back part of there is not going to be lawn. It's going to stay in the natural state. They're not going to mow it. We're going to put down where things are disturbed during the construction project. We're actually going to put a conservation seed mix down, and that's what it's going to be in the backyard. So we are taking down more trees than you may like, but we are going to keep this eastern part behind the property in its natural state as possible, of course, with some recreational areas, but the remainder will be unmowed or routinely, maybe twice a year to keep the vegetation down. And at the end of the year, we might cut down the goldenrods, things like that, and let them come up next year. Hydrology and stream flow impacts, we're not going to be impacting anything. This wetland is both derived or both contribute to surface water and groundwater, and Dibble's Brook rolls right through, and we're not going to be impacting that. Hydrology, water quality impacts, again, Doug's going to go through the robust BMPs that we have for the stormwater management, including the gravel wetland. We have another gravel wetland on this site. So again, with diligent monitoring, clearly, since we're so close to the boundary during construction phase, and with some of the nice items we have with the BMPs and with the essentially natural boundaries closest to the wetland, we're not anticipating any short or long-term impacts to the resource.
Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to note that in addition to the parcel on which the development's occurring, there's an adjacent parcel that was owned by an entity controlled by the same people that controlled the property. And I don't know if it's actually been merged yet, but it will be merged. So the total parcel that we have is 5.3 acres. Most of that is a giant swamp. So
The base of the cul-de-sac, it's gonna wrap down into the 5.83 acres goes.
you can see on the map with that.
Oh, perfect, got it. Got it. Yep, I can see that.
No, take it away.
Good evening, Dr. Vessel, professional engineer, represent the applicant. As Peter said, we combined the lots to the east of us, which will be a 5.3 acre parcel. At the east side of the cul-de-sac, the last lot in this development. I think there's only 6 houses on here. The property will be served through municipal water and also on septic systems. So again, we looked at the soil testing for septic. I found a good area, sand and gravel, to the south of the proposed driveway for the septic system will go. Been designed for a 4-bedroom house. And this is for Roy Steiner, Jesse Steiner. So we kept it at a very natural, downsizing the house, keeping everything natural, as Jim was talking about, behind the house itself. The proposal is to provide a gravel, surface gravel wetlands, again, kind of keep more of a natural thing for them to enjoy. So we have rough runoff in the front of the house will be going through a trench system, pipe off the house, drain down into the gravel wetlands, and that will collect and treat the water. Again, water quality volume has been detained, and also handle the stormwater management for the 22, 10, and 25-year design storm. The runoff from a portion of the driveway will flow around and then come down into the gravel wetlands area. We are providing a secondary driveway to service the garage, the areas under the house for storage equipment. This will not be paved. It'll be a gravel. We're calling out between 12 and 15 inches of trap rock or stone gravel base driveway to get into access to the property itself. What other issues we've got out here? Pretty straightforward. Septic system has been reviewed and approved by the health department, so we're all set with that. Now we're just waiting for the commission here to approve it. So I'll go into some of the comments from the staff. The area, one of the comments was asking about the area east of the decking, the area between the deck and where the silk fence is going to be going. That will be a natural state. Again, we want to keep everything as natural as possible, limit the amount of maintenance and things like that. That's one reason why the centers are downsizing. Peter mentioned about the aquifer protection. Dave talked about that as well. We did have a storage tank located up in the front yard here, underground buried tank. We've now since moved that to above ground on the opposite side of the property there. So now it's above ground. We've asked about the material excavated. I'm going to go through all the numbers, excavated and then filled. We asked about a cement truck washdown area, which is right here. Dewatering pit right here for the excavation of the house. Again, we have the detail of that here on the first page. Material storage will be out in the front yard. Construction vehicle coming in, parking on the proposed driveway. They've asked about the treatment cells. The 2 treatment cells are identical. The handle of stone, trap rock in there. That water passes through that. and then fall, and it comes out of the detention system, gravel, subsurface gravel wetlands, into a control outlet and back down to a level spreader. We talked about last time where a level spreader is, again, to allow the sheet flow out towards the wetlands and out towards Dibble Brook. Sedimentation erosion controls, we're providing what I'm showing here and outlining in orange. And then also a little piece around the level spreader. Dave asked about, if you can explain, you said breaks in the S&E controls. I didn't know what you meant by that. So I didn't see anything, that's how we responded. So we can go over that in a minute. So again, invasive species. We have any invasive species in the wetlands areas, those certainly will be removed by hand. And Jim can look that up right now for us to see what's out there. And then again, talk about the environmental sensitive shields. Again, this is kind of the same discussion we just had. You know, at the time, we're talking with Roy about it. Again, this is his house, having multiple ones out here, I think it'd be too many. Again, maybe one or two possibly, but we have that discussion as well. Because I mean, you got a real large wetlands area to shield, so it's gonna be quite a few of them out there. And construction time would be the you know, so we get approval from you from in the wetlands, building and planning and zoning, and then we're gonna health department approval. So once you get those things, construction will begin, and then whatever time it takes to complete the house. We also added a note as before on the other project about having the staff come out after sedimentation erosion controls are in, have them inspected by the staff, so that would be done as well. And then the byproducts from the tree removal will be taken off site, so nothing will be used on site. And then in terms of the Wright Pierce comments, we got comments back today. Everything's been addressed and everything pretty much in order in that regard. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. If there's any comments, maybe Dave, you can ask about that erosion control rate. I don't know where it was, but.
Okay, so I guess I'll just dive in with that. Let me see if I can, probably makes more sense to look on this screen here. Couple more. Everybody looking up on the screen, can you see that? See the cursor? Okay, so the proposed ENS controls that would be installed are noted by this dashed line with the X's here. There's a section that goes behind the proposed the gravel subsurface wetlands, if I'm saying that terminology correctly, and then kind of run back towards the driveway, and then this obviously will continue back behind the house and go on towards where the septic system is. There is a level spreader here, which continues beyond that and has its own section of ENS controls. I'm not sure if this is a disconnect on my part or if it's just something that was overlooked with site plans, but you'll see that these two sections here, this ENS control section here, and then this here are two distinct ENS control units or however else, where would be appropriate to put that in there. I just wanted to, I think it's worth the commission considering whether or not it makes sense to have the ENS control also go this way, because without that, you're leaving your limit of disturbance in this area.
We can do it, Dave. I mean, we can do it. That's not a problem. We can do it. Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, no problem. I didn't see where you're, I mean,
Put the extra 5 feet.
that's it, yeah, that's no problem.
Right. Other things that I would have, just to go back to the subsurface gravel wetlands, you guys have been seeing a lot of those lately. And I think it's a proof of concept that these types of systems work. You're looking at it on the commercial or multifamily scale with what is out on Stony Hill Road. Now you're going to have a proof of practice for this type of system be used not once, but twice for applications that are before your review. So I think if the commission has time to take a look at these when you're out or in the process of the construction of the site, or perhaps post-construction, if Roy is so kind to give us access to that property, I think it would be worth having you guys take a look at how they function, because it is a good system to use. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's one that falls under low impact development.
Correct.
And best management practices. So just consider that as part of this review.
I mean, I have photographs when Stony Hill was done. I did the Stony Hill, the Copper Square, and I've actually got some photographs of it being installed. But it's a very interesting process. We had some doubts about it when we did it, when the previous town engineer was reviewing it.
We didn't have any doubts.
I was gonna say, whoa, wait a second.
No, sir.
I don't remember that conversation.
No, the consultants did have concerns about it, but we didn't. So we worked at it, and it's been, what's that done? 2011, 12, 13. So it's been since almost 9 years now. It's been in there, and I think working fine. Working.
Is this
fine.
underground?
Yes.
I see. So there's some sort of a bed underground,
There's stone under the underground.
and
Correct.
it's acting as a mechanical and I assume a biological filtration.
Right. Correct.
University of New Hampshire has a website if you wanted to look at. They created this thing. I've been studying them now for, oh boy, a number of years.
Right.
I do remember
And then the
that
outflow
discussion.
just comes out through that dispersal.
Yeah, and it comes
Yep.
out, what happens is water will sit in there.
Yep.
It's a saturated condition, so it's anaerobic. And then as new water comes in, it pushes the old water out. And that's the biological process is taking it and cleans it out. Then anything above that stone levels, there's a detail on the next page that shows that anything above that level is your storage for your stormwater.
So if it's mechanically
It's
filtering,
not mechanical, it's all
so the
gravel.
gravel,
There's no mechanical.
mechanical
Awesome.
meaning the
Correct.
gravel is serving as a mechanical filter, as a
Right,
barrier, as a
right.
physical barrier. So does that need to be cleaned out?
No,
No.
Because
Because
it's
it's
just tiny
water.
particles,
It's bacteria
the biological.
and
filtration.
also the saturation and the unsaturations. You get the anaerobic conditions and
Yeah.
aerobic conditions where you get your denitrification of
Right.
nitrogen and then you have other things gobbling up nutrients.
Right.
and
That's the biological piece. So it's not actually physically separating anything out. It's
It's what
being
it's-
broken down biologically. There's nothing in the water.
well, it's what it's doing is it's functioning as a real wetland would function. Well, yeah, so it is breaking some things down, sure. Denitrification of nitrogen is actually
Right,
breaking it down.
right. No, I
And then
understand. that
eventually
piece.
go to a gas.
I got that.
Can I ask?
If there is one maintenance thing, if I can just jump in real quick. One thing that you would want to be cognizant of as part of this, and I don't want to try to explain this in too much detail, that's why Mr. DeVesta is here. There is, if I am, I'm just going to refer to the call out here, there is a PVC pipe that acts as a control outlet structure. You would just want to, the property owner, you would want to have them keep an eye on that to make sure that doesn't clog.
Right.
That would be the one place I would think of where if there is any maintenance, so to speak, that's where it would be.
Well, no, that pipe is actually underground, Dave.
Oh, okay.
It's underground, so what's happening, let's go to the next page here. So the water's coming in, there's pipes, perforated pipes on the bottom here, so water's coming through in one cell, two cells. Then there's actually a pipe on the bottom that comes up and out like that. So it's, what I'm showing Dave is. So the water's coming in, has to travel up and out this way, so there's really not anything in the ambient air, so it's just underground, it's all underground, and I have a control structure at the outlet end. There's basically a manhole or perforated, a pipe that has the outfall, has the controls in there, so water's coming in through here, going out through my various orifices to control the flow, and then out towards the level spreader. So there's really nothing that can clog there. You mean, you have to maintain it. I mean, it'd be planted like a wetland, like Jim was saying, it'd be planted like a wetland. So he has to get in there, maintain those things, and materials taken out things like that, but the process is that we've got wetland soils up in the upper area, that's your filtration. Goes down to some pea gravel and then into a larger stone down there. So that's really how the process works. So there's really no cleaning, there's really no coming in here and getting material trapped inside the stone and stuff. So the soils are water's being infiltrated down and allows to be filled out.
So that's not a manhole, it's more a vault.
This is it's a 24-inch.
Oh, okay,
So
it's a good size, okay.
How does it behave in a storm? Like an inch an hour, 2 inches an hour, like.
will be an overflow. There'll be an overflow there. They'll handle the water. It handles the water. So it allows the water to come in, infiltrates down. There'll be some standing water on larger storms. Then the water will be pushed out again. Again, the water that's going out of there, the first flush will take the water that's already in there and push it out, store it in there. Anything above that drainage will handle anything above that. That cells is the storage area for the grain, which handles up to a 25-year storm.
So will it be actively like flowing during the storm events? Will you see outflow to the level spreader and then you should, and it'll be like the older filtered water?
Yeah, water, any say a gallon of water comes in here, so it's gonna push the gallon of water out.
Okay. How do you control? It's an engineering question, I think. How do you maintain the level of the level spreader once you build it in place, like over time?
It's rocks.
Will it stay?
Yeah, you've got to have so this one is 18 inches tall, deep, 18 inches wide. We're putting a 4x4 pressure treated wood with rebar down into the ground that keeps it level. So you have to look at that, make sure it stays level. So if it does get bowed or whatever, you're gonna get some water, you're gonna get a concentrated water. So that'll have to be looked at. And then some maintenance will be done, making sure that the stone is cleared of any type of debris and things like that.
And the stone's big, it's not like 3/4.
No, it's an inch and I think it's an inch and a half.
Oh, I thought they were bigger than that.
The only reason I was asking is because I had a chance to observe one for the first time recently over at behind the Johnson School, maybe. And I think that there's a gravel, maybe if anybody in the room knows.
That is a different system.
Is it a completely different system?
Yes.
It seems like an artificial wetland.
And
geared toward
whatever its proper name is called, it does not have the same function as this. I believe the function, the intent for the function of this, and please interject if I speak out of school, it is so you wouldn't see. Let me pull this back up here on the screen.
Like the bottom of that,
So-
is that dirt or is that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the only place that you would see water per se, once should any overflow past this stormwater management system, it would be where it discharges from that PVC pipe and goes into the spreader itself.
Correct.
And then out from the spreader.
Right.
In a sheet flow manner versus a point discharge.
Yeah.
And remember, this is a single family residence. What you were looking at was a larger development.
Yeah,
School with lots of parking and.
It was huge artificial wetlands.
So
and
remember,
big level
you gotta
spreader.
bring it down to scale.
Yeah, but it was just, I wasn't sure if it was working right, because I was there during the storm we had a couple Sundays ago or whatever.
The Copper Square is really what you want to see, the ones, again, we've been there almost
Yeah.
9 years now, and there's one as you first come in. There's one as you first come in on the right-hand side of the driveway, there's a smaller one there that's taking part of from Stony Hill down to that point there. Then there's a larger one across from the clubhouse, and then there's two more between the two rows of condos. And I think there's also one next to the 49. I think there's two behind 49 Stony Hill Road that you're doing right now, and the condos there.
Oh,
So
wait,
there's
the
a bunch.
condo complex that we drove through?
Yeah.
Is it back there?
Yeah, so there's about 5 or 6 of them on there.
Yeah,
I'd
you know,
like to
there's-
see one myself, just.
Yeah, I
This
wanna
is
see
just
them
to
in
manage
action.
the displaced water off of the roof and off of the driveway and is that what this is?
For this one here?
Yes.
Yes, it's for the roof areas and
So
lawn
it doesn't
areas.
even
coming
really
to-
require a great deal of filtration because it's just rainwater that's coming down and being filtered.
That's correct.
Okay,
Right, and it's also acting as stormwater management.
So
too.
my management,
right.
So we're having two purposes, water quality
Yep.
and stormwater management to control the runoffs. That's what we're doing.
Makes sense.
not increasing flow off.
We're trying to get away from my clients are trying to get away from putting stuff under the ground and plastic chambers and stuff like that, which is very expensive. This is probably a more reasonable solution for that, and we had the room to do it. That's why we did it on this one, that's why we did it on 115. So,
And they work.
Yes, it's better. Seems like an opportunity for green space too, like, yeah, planted with native seed and wet.
The bottom of the chamber, is that dirt or is it like plastic?
What we did on these, and we did over on copper, is that we've lined them with a pond liner.
So it doesn't,
Poly.
so the water
The
doesn't
reason
sink
why we're
down,
doing
it
this too
always.
is because we don't have we couldn't get the separation distance.
Right.
Which we'll have a discussion with Wright Pierce on that anyway. So we couldn't get the separation distance from the groundwater, and these can be put right into the groundwater. So yes, by using a poly liner,
That's where you
it's
get the
impervious,
tank.
so we can allow them to do that.
So it's a Coltech chamber upside down,
No,
basically.
well, we don't get any infiltration or exfiltration either.
Right, it's solid,
So it's
that's,
solid.
you're creating,
It's a
I got
the
it.
bathtub,
Okay,
yeah.
that's why water's always in it, not sinking
Creating a
down.
bathtub acting as a bio.
I was trying to figure out how the water stays in there without going into the ground now. I got it. Thank you.
Big biofiltration base with a liner.
There's the liner right there. Okay, that's copper. So there's the liner. So that's the liner we've used on in
We're
copper.
learning.
Makes sense. With
Oh,
stone.
yeah.
So that's the liner.
Learn every day.
I do. Even apparently at 9:20 on a Monday.
Why not?
You want to hear that?
What better time?
Do you guys have any questions,
We
Greg?
have a couple.
So,
We really have a
so-
list.
I feel like
As with the last one,
You can
Sounds
have all you want.
So it is, that's why we're
There's
using.
no limit.
yes, there is.
Yeah.
I know, we all-
there is.
Yeah.
No, I was just wondering also if there's any, what the plans are for erosion, future erosion, since we're getting rid of a lot of trees along the bank of the wetland area, and they're building the deck really close. And I guess that where the silt fence is that the area that will that all be disturbed?
Limit disturbance is about to that line there. And we want to keep this as natural as possible back here. So really, there's not many grass back here. Even this little area right here, I don't know, did we propose any kind of,
We're gonna propose a kind of a conservation seed mix where areas that have been disturbed during construction. Areas that are not disturbed, we're gonna leave alone.
so this area, like Jim's saying, with a conservation mix being here and along in this area here, and then the gravel wetlands will be planted again. That's sure, so we planted that more like a wetlands planting. in that area.
Are you guys concerned at all? Sorry.
No,
About
because I was-
erosion without the tree
I
roots
want
and
to
things?
second that as well, because that was my main thing, 'cause I've spent a lot of time on that back property historically. I have a family down there. I just know that the soil is very moist soil back there. Like it's a lot of wetlands. It always seems like it's very slick.
Well, in the wetland itself, it's actually organic.
So, and so my concern was the deck did look very close to it, and I was concerned with erosion that might.
Well,
That will have trap rock underneath there. So that's collecting the water from the roof area
Right.
and off the deck itself. So it'll be trap rock under the deck itself. So there won't be any erosion from that.
and then they'll have a conservation wildlife mix as we leave the deck down to the natural wetland boundary.
So this area here will be
And
the
that,
conservation mix.
and
right here.
the Steiners are not gonna maintain that other than, like we talked about with the other project, with the edge of the pond, maybe you whack it down mid-season, kind of you control it, but you don't maintain it like a lawn. And at the end of the season, you weed whack down the goldenrods and such. So next year, it just looks a little, it's natural, but it looks aesthetic.
So just to be clear, during the construction process, there's an extensive erosion sediment control plan that Doug's designed. Silt fences and everything that goes along with that. When the construction's done, those areas are stabilized by things like the conservation seed mix. They grow and there's no erosion. So, that's the whole point of the design and the review is to make sure that happens.
Gentle slopes there, folks.
Is it gentle?
Yes.
It's gentle enough. My concern was long-term erosion.
No.
And you guys were worried
I
if
mean,
you guys had any,
If you have a robust growth, you shouldn't have erosion. Right.
a robust what?
Growth of vegetation.
Well, yeah, okay. My thinking of like what robust vegetation is like tree roots. Holding
No,
the
no,
bank of the
no,
river up and like land.
Well,
But
tree roots do hold soil. But if you remove all the vegetation around the tree roots, you're gonna have erosion. Now, I want a robust, I want that's the statute say, at DEP, you have to have 75% or 70% or 80% stabilized, unstable soils stabilized with some sort of plant growth. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 100% growing someplace in lawn. We're proposing conservation and whatever else Mother Nature has in her seed bank.
Invasive olives.
So you guys
Well,
are, you guys are.
yes, there are. We do have a variety of
No, it's,
invasives out there,
The autumn olive is totally.
but
invasive.
we're gonna maintain, we're gonna manage that. Some of that's gonna be managed just by the way we manage the backyard.
No, I was, as long as you guys aren't concerned about
It
the
should.
footing is moving over time.
No, no.
I was thinking, like, I'm thinking like long term,
No, no.
as long as the spiders aren't concerned.
No, that shouldn't be an issue.
Two things that I'll add, hopefully to wrap this up. And I think this may clarify what you were trying to go after, Nico. Is it the applicant's intent to grub the stumps for the trees that are removed, or would they remain?
That's great. We're gonna pull
No,
them. They pull right out,
Okay. Okay,
because some are right in the gravel wetlands. You can see we've got a few trees in the gravel wetlands, we got some in the deck area, right in the middle of the house here, right behind the house, so those stumps will be pulled right out.
yeah, I just didn't want the whole hillside shifting on the homeowners.
No, it's not gonna shift.
Flood, when a flood comes and, erodes the whole stream and stuff moves, earth moves.
But that's why we have the EAS controls.
and then,
During construction.
Yeah, and after.
No, I'm
ENS,
talking longer term, long term.
Yeah, but there should be a robust.
There's no retaining wall or anything.
No, we're just, this Mother Nature's gonna be taking care of the backyard.
You guys aren't worried about it.
so the other thing I would have to ask, and this would be of the commission. I'm gonna put this in the same scope as the previous application that we just discussed tonight, 115 Walnut Hill Road. I do not have a draft resolution of approval, if that's the consensus that I would ultimately get from you guys tonight, prepared, ready to go. I could definitely have one ready for this seemingly,
Epic.
right, April 11th meeting. Would you guys want to have the applicant revise the site plan so that you can see where the conservation mix would be behind the house?
He marked it
It's on the
basically.
plan.
with the-
Oh, it is?
yeah, It's on with the sediment control lines, it's like the brown line.
Right.
Right there.
Well, you're in a very.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a brown, where sediment control measures
So-
are after that.
In here, in that one here, this will be all your conservation mix, right, put in this area in here, up to the retaining wall.
Right.
And more area that's not mowable, that Roy would like, that's better off for him.
What is the construction timeline looking to start?
As soon as we get all our approvals.
Yes.
I was thinking we could move it to another meeting, but okay.
Are they worried about the mosquitoes or anything? So screening porch.
Come on, I'll show
An
you.
office
My bed, this is exactly what I have at my house. The mosquitoes are horrific. The wetlands is beautiful. You give and you take.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna be.
It is, no, literally, like my house and it drops off and this is
Yeah,
exactly
like a
what
tree
it,
house.
well, not exactly, but,
Okay.
It's New England.
right.
It snowed today.
So there's no
Mountains and
special
swamps.
demarcation on the site plan is needed for where conservation seed mix is going, because it's just going to be, I don't know if I'm assuming there's a call out for it on the plans to say that they're just.
We can put something on there, David, but I think
We go
as a condition of approval, we can,
Condition of
we
approval.
can spin a revised.
Like we're gonna do with the placards.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Steiners will plant the conservation mix pretty much everywhere. They're not looking for lawn, except maybe their front yard.
Smart people.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions?
Nope.
Do we want to get a consensus for where we're going with this? I'm assuming it's going to be an approval.
I'm fine with approval. I'll
Okay.
do what the board feel.
So I would have one prepared for you guys at our next meeting.
Sure.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your attention.
Thank
tonight.
you.
Thank you for all the time.
It's also a quick question. The previous permit, how big is that pond?
The pond on the other,
Yeah.
115, it's smaller, I think, but Jen, do you know?
No.
All right,
Acreage?
We could figure it out.
No,
It's bigger than
don't,
the
just
setback.
curious.
Did you go into the center of the well?
I know what's gonna, I'm gonna be asked when I get home, so.
You can't go in the center, not on this last one, you'd sink to your eyeballs.
Look at the satellite.
Thank you. Lucky soil.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, are we still good, or we need a break?
No breaks.
I would
No
like to-
break.
Yeah.
Just-
Sorry.
Break?
It's getting
What a
old,
great-
that's
Wait,
all.
hey.
I don't
Let's keep moving.
but I'll have to pee at 3
So thank you, Doug.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is Whitney Road, number 17, I believe it is.
That's right.
Okay.
Kathy, do you need a break?
Sorry, Kat, just
Just.
shut your camera off.
I believe the
All right.
project engineer is joining us remotely via Zoom, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Mr. Mizuko, are you here to speak for this application?
Yes, good evening, members of the commission. Mike Mizuko, professional engineer, representing the applicant. And we did get comments from staff and Wright Pierce last week. And taking a look at them, they're modest comments, but we've got to do some work to with some additional soil testing for a section of the drainage system, as well as, identifying some other things as outlined in the comments. And we'll get those back in probably in about a week or so. I just had a bunch of other work I had to complete and didn't have enough time to get to it in time for this meeting. So that's where we are. If there's any questions or comments about any of the staff comments or the Wright Pierce comments, I mean, I could try to answer them verbally, but I will provide written comments as well as revised plans.
Mike, would you mind giving the commission a brief overview of the project and what it entails?
Sure, currently it's improved. There's a contractor's yard garage, if you will. And the proposal is to take that down. The project's in the TOD zone. And one little minor correction is that the application calls for 32 units, but the actual architectural plans are only showing 30 units. So it's not 32, it's 30. And so it's one building as shown on the site plan. We're doing improvements to the drainage system, obviously providing sufficient amount of parking to meet the regulations at 1.75 spaces per unit. The project is served by a municipal sewer, in which we have a very minor temporary impact of the wetlands to install a new sewer line. There's already an existing sewer line there, but it's probably too small for what we're proposing. So we are replacing that. The project's also served by municipal water, which is in Whitney Street or Whitney Road. And we'll be tying into that as well as the gas, which is there also. And we're providing recreation area. And the 100-year, there is a 100-year flood plain that was, I don't know if it's complete, but there's a Lomar done along there, which is the 361 contour, which was field shot by New England Land Surveying. And so, yeah, that's sort of it. I mean, it's not an overly complicated project. We're not proposing to fill any wetlands. We just have that temporary work, which will involve just retrenching and putting in a larger pipe and then just putting the material and restoring it to the sewer manhole that's existing there.
You have any questions at this time, Dave?
I don't.
Just continue.
I don't have any comments at this time, other than that the applicant in their description, they note that there's the temporary disturbance in the regulated wetlands area on the property to accommodate a larger sewer line for the proposed building that's here. I think that it's worth the commission having some more description as to what that would entail, apart from the trenching activity that was mentioned. You would also want to know the time of year that they would be going in with that, and the equipment that would be used, and other elements that can be discussed in greater detail when the applicant comes back with their response comments. I think it would make sense for us to continue this site plan review at either our April 11th meeting, if the applicant's ready in time, or we can have this go to April 25th, which is when we had our next regular meeting scheduled. So I'll leave that at your guys' discretion for what you would like to do.
I favor continuing it. I think we're loading up April 11th.
Yeah,
I'd rather move
don't
it to
forget April
25th.
11th is pre-Easter, it's Holy Week, so.
Understood.
Okay.
Oh, that is.
Well, we're using April 11th as the date. You know, we have to discuss if April 11th is viable.
Yeah.
So I would actually, I mean, I don't know how the board feels. I would move this to the regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
April 25th.
Okay.
definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I think that's reasonable too, David, because by the time I get stuff in, it's not gonna give much time for you to review it or write peers, so I think we would just be pushing it anyway, so I think that's appropriate.
Allow us to have
Thank
all
you,
the
Mike.
information together at one time
Yeah.
instead of multiple.
And that still falls within 65 days, so we're good.
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
does.
All right.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good evening. All right, so that concludes our old business. Going on to new business, let's discuss, I guess, first that special meeting.
Yes.
Okay. April 11th has been noted as a possible date. So thoughts of April 11th, not April 11th, when do you want to do this special meeting?
If I can jump in
Please.
before we get into the discussion. So for the commission's context, we just as established practice, our the fourth Monday of the month, which is traditionally when your meetings are held, is usually before the second meeting that P and Z has on the following Tuesday of that month. For the past two, it's I guess through circumstance or however else you'd say it, our meeting has been held after that. So it throws the timing for applicants and it throws the timing off for us way off. Just to add to that, I'm not sure if this is just a trend that the commission should account for when we schedule our meetings at the end of the year in December, but this is the third year in a row, if not the fourth, where we've had a wave of applications come in late winter, early spring, because everybody's eager to have their permit paperwork lined up and ready to go once you're entering your construction season. I would say if you were to schedule a special meeting, it would be earlier than in years past, which is a good thing, because it gives a greater window for us to make sure things are straightened out as they should be in-house. Because once you guys give your resolution of approval, an applicant has to submit to the land use department for an administrative approval. And then there are some comments that get jumped in with P and Z and the like. So it gives more time for them to hash that out. I think they've learned that they need that time. So that may be why this push is coming earlier this year. I understand that Holy Week would be that week of the 11th. This is not so much by choice as it is by circumstance that we would have this meeting. And the thought process with the 11th is it may not make as much sense to have you guys meet 2 Mondays in a row. And I certainly am not ready to have you guys come back next Monday. That puts a lot of pressure on me to get everything done, and then it puts a lot of pressure on the applicants to make sure everything is done, not to mention my peers. So the 11th is kind of your compromise. It's unfortunate that it falls that way. I will do my best to not have this meeting go as late as tonight's is. I would imagine with the majority of the discussion already having taken place for most of these applications, it would just be a matter of, did we get what we needed? Yes, okay, let's discuss the draft resolution of approval. Did we get what we needed? Yes, so on,
Yep.
so on, so on. So
So does the 11th work?
That's actually
So
perfect for me.
anybody
The other
would-
two, I don't think are options, so.
yeah,
Would anybody be willing to do it on Tuesday?
the issue with the Tuesday is that you
No,
is
I have practice. Okay.
you conflict with P and Z.
Oh, right.
And they will also be using this space. And really for the applicant's intent, especially with applications that also have to go before P and Z, they're gonna wanna know when they're speaking to P and Z that their piece is taken care of, because P and Z cannot make their decision on an application that's before them until they know that we've made ours. So.
My concern was that it's my nephew's birthday.
Can you just have him move it?
I can't. It's his first birthday, but he's 1 year old.
I'll bring him.
I just realized.
When
he goes to bed, like, he goes to bed at 7.
But he's in bed now.
So
So it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. This is
Yeah,
our
worst
music.
case
Whatever.
scenario,
You're 15 minutes late. I think the world will survive.
Or Zoom in.
Also, you can
Yeah,
move,
I bet I should.
you could also adjust the time if needed.
Also,
Yeah.
just so you know, as a mom, like, he doesn't actually know that Monday is
Yeah,
his birthday, because he
I don't
knows.
say
He's smart.
I'm 40.
Not that
He's
smart.
going for the, he's going for frosting. Did the 11th work?
Anyway.
That's why we have
Yes.
Zoom too.
It works fine for me.
It sounds like we have a quorum for the 11th.
So I
The
would.
7 o'clock on the 11th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion, we hold the,
It'll be a quick meeting.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I make a motion, we hold a special meeting on April 11th.
I second.
Also, yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Abstain.
And that's at 7 PM.
And that's 7 PM, sorry.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, that's done. Codfish Hill. We
So-
put that on the new business.
Yes, well, yes. So I, for the chair's request, I have prepared a draft resolution of approval. For you new members, you can peruse all 4 pages, but for our vets, it's really the
Spoiler.
items of interest are really on the last 2. For voting purposes, Pat, you have the 5 members you need. That would be Kevin, Nico, yourself, Greg, and Laura to vote.
Okay. So let's take a couple of minutes to read through.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I do have to use the restroom, so.
Oh, you're the one that wanted. to-
Yes.
Now it's
That's reading
clear.
material.
You,
Take it with
That's it.
please, John.
Too soon. Next time I'll bring beers. I was actually really gonna do that with my last, I was gonna show up with snacks, but my,
There's such a dinner until later, like I don't.
I'm
You almost
right,
have to.
I'm right there with you.
yeah, I got my last meeting, this is always.
Can we charge it to the
I'm a couple minutes late and I will text you next time.
Come to a budget
Our
meeting.
meetings
try that.
happen, I'm gonna
I
come,
dare you.
and it happens during close week every month, the last week of the month, so.
Yes, that was a
So
direct
it's,
threat.
if I'm ever not gonna
Official.
be here, I'll be on Zoom immediately, but if I'm ever a couple minutes
Come
late,
to a
it's just
budget
literally
meeting, I
hard
said.
to convert
You
here
just
with you
went
guys.
down budget meeting?
No, I'd rather
Different than Board of Finance.
chew glass and gargle with isopropyl alcohol than go to one of those meetings now.
It's fun, right?
Oh, it's
It's a
great.
good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time. Yeah.
Not.
It's actually, if you chew glass and gargle with
No.
isopropyl alcohol, it's, you can do
Might
that
be
at
more
the meeting.
pleasant.
Is there a lot of
It improves it.
arguing? Is there a lot of bickering with this one?
It's a lot of nonsense and unnecessary.
We're still on to that.
Yes,
We have it easy,
I would have a say to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, John.
Sorry.
February 28, 2020. Page 3. 2022. First paragraph.
Thank you. 7 pairs of eyes are better than one.
I should be here on February 20th, 2020. I have a conflict.
Do you think so?
You said the first 2 pages of boiler.
The first 2 pages are really me stuff. The last 2 pages are really your guys' stuff.
Last page is pretty much boiler.
It's the breakdown of verified receipts of information and the timeline.
This is what you said for the erosion sedimentation control implementation.
If it's asked of me.
It's not,
I'm sorry,
but it's not standard.
Ken? Not a problem. The issue is how much of me is there to go around when you have 6 applications, 6 instructions.
Usually they have the engineer, if it's a big one, the engineer actually I think would go out to the site and verify setting controls.
Because I noticed like some of the things that, what was it, Jim was saying, in both of his presentations, it's like with diligent monitoring. I noticed his use of the term, maybe that's standard, but it seems to help.
This is for 28 Codfish. This is for a different property entirely.
No,
Yeah, I know.
Just because construction people have a tendency to flatten stuff.
Give everybody another minute or 2 to finish up reading, and when you guys let me know, I'll give you a brief rundown for this.
Page 3, number 8, we have to know.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right, so if it isn't obvious, this is the letter that the Inland Wetlands Commission issues to the applicant and the people that represent them to let them know that you are rendering a decision in favor of approval for the regulated activities that they're proposing. The first page essentially gets into when you guys made your decision, what that decision entailed, and the documents that you reviewed. It so happens that we had so many that it went on to the second page. And most of these are just revisions and back and forth between the applicant and our engineers over at Wright Pierce. It also makes mention of the site plan sheets that you guys took a look at as part of this. The third and fourth pages, as I mentioned to our vet members and just for the new guys, this is really the meat of where your decision lies, in that if there's any conditions that you want to add as part of your decision, things that you may have discussed, things that you know, you want to make sure the applicant adheres to as part of their process, you would list it here. I have it broken down into some categories that have been tried and true for me and for you guys. If you guys have any questions on how that works, just let me know. And the last page entails the reasons for why you are making your decision. So you are basing it on the fact that you are not going to have any adverse impacts to the flood patterns for any on-site wetlands or off-site wetlands whose upland review area stems into the project area. That there's best management practices being used, and that the regulations that you guys are charged with having your reviews pertain to, and then the state of Connecticut general statutes that gives you guys that authority are being adhered to. You don't have to use all three reasons for basing your decision, but it always looks good for you guys and for the applicant to know that they're able to get all three. I'm certain that you only need at least two to be able to make a decision on. So if for some reason you don't think they're able to meet all three, just let me know. I don't see in this instance why you would have an issue with that. One thing that I will say, to go back to the conditions, you would want to throw in a miscellaneous condition to have the applicant confirm that they're addressing all the comments that Wright Pierce has for them, i.e. with test pits. So essentially you would, it would be a reminder for Doug to make sure he's got his ducks in a row with Wright Pierce before we sign off on the zoning permit, which is the administrative part that goes underway once you guys go forth with your resolution of approval. The only other thing I can think of, apart from any other things that you may have, numbers that are off, or comments that you may want to add, is whether or not we would do anything with these. I understand that you know, it's the number that I had thrown out, bless you, may have given that appearance of offense. That was not my intent. It's just to make sure that someone knows that you have an area that a property owner should be cognizant of when they do anything close to it. So with that being said, floor is open to discussion. Anybody's got any questions, feel free to express them.
This is a pretty standardized format too, so we're from you, so moving forward, things will pretty much be organized.
Exactly, yes. Every resolution of approval that you guys will look at least while I'm here, we'll have this format.
Okay.
You know, you'll have your items, materials, and then your conditions, and then your reasonings, all in that order. The specifics for each of those may change, because obviously every site is unique, and the activities that go on within them, you may want to have one condition added, you may think another condition is not necessarily appropriate, so you want to have it stricken, something to that effect. But the format for this and for the activities that are associated with this application, this is a pretty standard resolution of approval draft.
Excellent, very straightforward. And as for the postings, I'm pretty much indifferent. I'm like a little personally apprehensive about it, but not to the point where I'd have any kind of inkling on any rendered judgment on something like this, like the right to build for any reason. I'll come to terms myself with how I think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something like that, but it's nothing that would keep me from abstaining from a decision.
I'm fine with them if they're not too many. I think two is fine.
I just want to put this out in the open.
Mhm.
You're putting something in what's a pretty area that's kind of gaudy, and it's
I
also
agree.
creating something that's eventually gonna become trash in an area that is stated that it will be removed, but it likely won't be. So that's gonna be aged over time in an area that we're trying to preserve. That's where my mentality is, but at the same time, I also understand that it's good to bring public knowledge to the fact that people, listen, if I went to Saugatuck Reservoir and there weren't postings that it was private land, I would have fished it without asking, you know?
Still good.
So so I understand that concept as well.
Can't
So it's
fish
just
there.
conflicting with me, so I don't.
Can't fish.
Right.
And I agree with you, and I think that's why I voiced if it was public land or a condo or a rental, the homeowner's gonna know, and I don't wanna, create
Yeah,
eyesore.
Yeah, and it's their private land, and at the end,
I would personally, I would put one on one corner, one on the other corner, and I'm good.
I-
You know,
I would say, to the benefit of this site, you have trees to work with.
no, and I agree. I asked him, he won't have the trees. I asked him if you could put it on a tree.
Not this site, the other site.
Oh, yes, the other side. Yeah.
Right. So this is for 28 Coffers. This is the one where you went out to that sidewalk.
It was up, there was a big hill.
Oh,
And the
yes,
owner
I'm
walked
sorry.
us around.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, there's plenty of
Just
trees.
trees in the back.
Plenty of trees to put it
That
on.
wouldn't bother me.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
So obviously you would want to have
Thank you
them
for
fixed in a
covering.
way where they wouldn't hurt the tree.
I don't get it. To me, these are for publicly owned property. It's private property, it's their property. What do they need signs for?
Yeah, I mean, it's
I
definitely.
mean, it's your yard. It's not the town's pond. It's not anybody else's pond.
As a
I mean, I
home.
get it.
This is actually
I don't think
wetland.
that
Yeah,
it would
I
stop
get
us
it.
from behaving
It's
the
still
way
yours.
we have
Wrong
our-
county arguments. I really do. You have such proper arguments on both sides that I'm conflicted about it, but like I said, it's not a confliction that would keep me from rendering a judgment on something. It's a confliction that I need to.
I'm just concerned we're setting this as a standard.
Well, that's exactly.
And then that's what concerns me.
Well, this is,
set a precedent.
this is where you guys have the discretion to say, it depends on a couple of variables, right? The first of which is, what is the extent of the activity relative to where the wetlands are? And how close does it get? The second is, what is the resource that is on that property? Is it a small vernal pool? Is it a little tiny stream? Is it a larger wetland that perhaps
Right.
extends onto other properties, be they public or private? If you guys don't think these shields are appropriate, that's at your discretion. If you guys think they are, then that is also at your discretion.
I don't mind
I
being
don't
on
think
this
there's a
property,
precedent
one
being.
or two trees. You're not creating,
Right.
that to me, one or two trees, I'm okay. If you're starting planting
Right.
4x4s, it's a different look.
Right.
In a couple of years, that's all gonna be rusted brown and you won't see it anyway.
So Dave,
Yeah, but you're
when
also
I
putting trash
purchased
on the wetland.
my house, and this was a long time ago, and I don't remember because it was a long time ago, but I have a huge portion of my property is wetlands. And I don't remember when we bought it being informed of any of the regulations. I understand that like it's on me, due diligence to figure those things out. But what would have been more impactful to me as a homeowner, and I like the wetlands and I'm not developing them and I'm not doing anything in them. But that's me, maybe not the next person. What would have been helpful to me would be to actually receive that as a piece of owning the land, was regulations on how that goes. Does that happen? That would be more impactful to me than this.
You don't get anything from
That's a
the
good
town.
question, actually.
And I recognize that's not maybe in our jurisdiction to forward.
It
I'm just
unfortunately
asking,
isn't.
right? But that's what if I had had that, you know what, when I moved in, there was a town code of like, these are the regulations in our neighborhood, and they were the stupidest list of things you've ever heard in your life. Like, I'm not allowed to have chickens or a clothesline outside or an above ground pool. But I got that in the packet of information, which is stupid, and this would have been meaningful.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, it's, with all the transactions that go on.
Yep.
It's not like we're being informed every time
Right.
as to when someone purchases a new property. I mean, yes, there are the transaction records that you can look at in the clerk's office. But then you'd be going through a spreadsheet
Sure,
of every
arduous.
single one to
Right.
figure out which one does or does not have wetlands. And how do I say this? Because you don't want to necessarily assume that anyone is going to have to the point of I think some of the members on this board, that anyone's going to want to have any interest in doing anything close to those areas of your property anyway.
Right.
If it's more of substance, because you could argue the same for planning and zoning regulations, right? When someone buys a piece of property, they're not getting a 200 some odd page book of your zoning regulations.
Right.
That just doesn't happen.
No, but when you go to make an improvement, any contractor with any, ethics and concern for the law is gonna say, did you pull a permit? I need permits to do this work. And that's when you're gonna find what the process is. Whereas if I wanna go down into the wetlands in my backyard and tear out all the trees and I don't know, build a sandbox for my kids, no one's gonna tell me I can't do that, but it would be a bad idea. Am I making sense?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I just,
You can do certain things.
yeah, right, but no, but I don't even know what I can do because I don't go down there because it's a mud pit and filled with mosquitoes.
Agriculture.
So,
But I just don't know that that would make an impact.
Do you guys want to say anything, Greg or Laura? Can I say? You're fine.
yeah, let me just jump back to that real quick. So this is where your regs come in handy, and this is why I took it upon myself. I apologize for not having gotten one sooner to you guys. But that's all spelled out in the regs.
What you can and can't do, right?
It not so much what you can and cannot do. It defines what activities require a permit
Right.
and which ones do not. Because that's really what you're after. You're not out to tell people no, you can't do something. You're out to make sure that what they're doing does not adversely impact the wetland. Sometimes that requires an approval from you guys.
Right.
Sometimes it does not. It's all about, one could argue, is there something that puts that prompt in place for them to think that way?
Right.
If that's not
And that's
appropriate,
exactly what I'm saying is I think
Right.
that's your purpose with this is to
Yes.
say, hey, pay attention. There's something you need to think about. here.
yes, that's.
I don't
yes.
think you need.
And I'm saying that I'm not sure that this would prompt that for me. If I
Okay.
saw this, but the thing that I can't do, have the piece of paper when I buy the house and sign all the other things, that would prompt me to be like, okay, I gotta pay attention to this.
Understood.
It's a reminder, right? This is supposed to serve as a reminder to new homeowners and to people that
Yeah.
that the water is not
Right.
only theirs,
Maybe you
right?
need to check on things
The
before. you
water
start
rights are
knocking into
public,
them.
public rights, even though they own the pond, they own the stream. We've lived here.
Mhm.
I'm trying to put myself in like the shoes, like how would I feel like if this was like on the bottom of my hill? Like,
I'll tell you right now, I would hate it. If I had a piece of property, and again, I picture someone who I know has a piece of property. If he had to put that on his property, the way his property is situated, it would be awful.
Why?
Because his house is literally 10 feet from his pond. And it's open and he has a further view. Now, if you have one of them, that's
Not
one
on a
thing.
tree, on a stake.
Yeah, on the
in
stake.
Middle of the lawn.
If it's on a
now,
tree, I
so
have
that's
no
what this
problem. It
one-
blends
yeah.
in, okay. If you have to put that in a
prominent
view,
way. Right.
I have a concern. If
Why?
there's
Because
one-
it says town of Bethel. on it?
No, because there's
There's
a
a
stake.
stake in
Who
the
wants a
middle of
stake?
the-
Sticking.
I'll tell you right now,
Yeah.
this person I'm thinking of has 21 kids this week running around this thing. You don't want a 4x4 post
Right.
sitting where these
Because
kids
this
are.
totally seems like something that we would put on a public land or public water
Yes, and I
supply.
agree, and
We
that's.
see that, we see those things,
Right.
these
And
things
I'm
around, or
fine.
in a land trust property. or-
Right.
And I'm fine if it's on a
Because you're
pre-existing
from
thing.
yourselves
It's-
using the property.
Right.
When it's just you using the
Right.
property, when you have purchased the property, you're made well aware of what it is.
Do you know, do we not, yeah, how,
Well,
do they not even?
When you go to your
Picture-
closing, you go through everything with your house and your property, you're made aware if you have wetlands or not.
And this drains.
So picture this on Bennett property. picture 6 of them around Bennett property on 4x4. You just change the aesthetic of the pond. You just change the 10-year-old kid who's going there to go fishing, seeing that saying, oh, I can't fish here. When you can't, you change the aesthetics. Now picture this on the bridge over on Bennett property, it blends right in. It'll be like, it's there. Hey, I know it's there. It's reminding me, and no one's gonna be like, oh, what's that post? It blends in there.
Like putting one of these somewhere in a strategic spot seems like.
I'm fine with that.
On public property, on private property on your lawn. Why?
I don't know. Is it just what worst case scenario? What would I would use it as target practice. Like if it was in my woods, honestly, like the worst.
Then it's not
I feel like
serving
it.
the intended
I
purpose.
feel like it does serve the intended purpose. That it will remind people, like, oh, this is a public water supply.
But again,
Watershed, and then if they want to turn it into target, like,
but I
that's
feel,
their
but
private
here's the thing.
and they
I
don't-
feel if it's public, yeah, they may need that reminding. They may need.
Because they're not.
You know what?
aware. They haven't
Right.
purchased it.
They
It's
haven't
not
purchased
theirs.
If you own the property, you're buying a house, eventually you're gonna understand what that is, and if it's like a condo or rental, you have other people move in. I understand having them. Again, I'm not opposed to them at all. I'm just opposed to say, hey, put a 4x4 in the middle of my view of this beautiful pond.
So,
It changes the aesthetic.
I mean, I never like nailing stuff into trees either usually.
And not only
So,
that, you're also putting them in, oh, sorry. Yeah, you're
And
right.
I'm not talking spike, I'm talking.
let me try to expedite this, because it's not my intent to have, it would not be my intent to advise you guys to have these be glaring things
Right.
that you have to look at or be scared of anytime you get close to a water body
Right.
or a stream or a wetland
Right.
for that matter. All it's meant to be, if you have something that's naturally occurring that you can place one of these on, convenient, all you need is one, maybe two,
Yeah.
cool.
On this property, you have that, you have the trees.
Yeah,
And
so.
again, I'm not a tree person, but I don't think putting a 6-penny nail into a tree is gonna harm the tree. And I may be wrong, I mean, the benefit outweighs, the thing. So having 1 or 2 there is enough to let people know, hey, there's a wetland here. And it's not like, oh, look out my window, I have a sign. It's look out my window, I have a tree.
People could always take it down too if they don't like it.
Well, if you tell them they have to have it, they have to have it. You can't assume that, hey, as soon as
That-
I'm away,
that-
Oh,
take it down.
we mandate they put it up as part of the permitting process for development, right?
No, you
No,
can
they're
leave
saying that
it,
it
leave
has
it
to be
forever.
there, right?
But nobody's gonna police that.
Which
If it's
is
your
what
house,
I'm
You
asking
can't
meeting is
assume,
who is going
you
to
can't
police
say
these
do
things.
it and then when I'm not looking, do what you want.
So,
Or because we're in public. forum.
That's why I said. there's
So
another
I-
team.
so
Right.
ideally, you would have someone place this up as part of their construction activity. And then when what's called a zoning compliance inspection is made, there would be a trigger for me as the wetlands agent, because you guys didn't approve for this, to me go out and inspect.
Right.
And in that process, I would be like, oh, there's a condition in this approval that one of these shields be placed. Is it placed? And if it is, then okay. If it's not, then it has to be. What the property owner does after that, to Danielle's point, ideally it stays. And once it's up there, I don't see why anyone would want to go through taking it down again. Right, right. I mean, if someone happens to be out there with a hammer and nail in hand and ask me, hey, where can I put this? I just want to make sure that it's satisfying your requirements, but I don't want to have to look at it all the time. Is there a middle ground that we can meet? Absolutely, I would work with that. And I'm not going to try to be a stickler and have them put it in the most obnoxious spot possible, but they should know that this should be something that you can see and know where it is. And anyone who buys this property in the future, after it perhaps gets sold, would also be able to know where it is.
I can imagine if someone's buying a piece of property, even if it's old and rusted, you walk by, you'd be like, hey, what's that? Anyone's gonna walk the property when they buy it, so you don't need them to fall.
That's all I'm going to say about it. if you guys don't think it's appropriate for this property, then
I think for this
we strike
project,
it, and that's at your discretion. If you guys want to put one in there,
I have no problem putting 2 of them on trees
okay,
there. You know, interval space.
okay.
You know,
One along the driveway, it's a long wetland.
That's fine. You know, again, it's not like, anything glaring. It's enough that whoever owns the property is gonna know it's there. I'm fine with that. I don't know how anyone else feels, as long as it's on.
I could totally live with that. My real thing is you're putting garbage in the woods,
Okay.
is what it is, but at the same time, at least it serves a purpose, as opposed to a lot of the garbage that ends up in the woods that serves no purpose.
Can this be the kind of thing where it's like on the agreement with the property owner, like if they want them? It's super fast.
I don't think anybody's gonna opt to put it up on their property.
Why not? It's kinda cool, I would.
Well,
But maybe it should be like.
Yeah,
a-
what, what I can say
I would-
is during the inspection,
Yeah.
if you guys want me to take that course of action informally, I could bring the shields with me and be like, hey, I understand that, you're, that you may have been reluctant to have been required to be put up these shields, but if I were to offer them to you because they're of no charge to us, they would be of no charge to you. If I were to give this to you, would you want to use them? They can refuse me if they want, they can put them up if they want, that's at their decision. If you guys would like to go that route, that may make the most sense.
You're giving them the option
I don't
to,
know.
it's their own private property.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Does
are
that help
giving
you,
them the
Fred?
option.
They
Does
should
that help
start-
you?
it's not a breaking point of this, but I just don't see the purpose of them on private property. At all. It's your yard. It's not the town's yard. And to Pat's point, if I had
I
a
mean, I
nice
would feel
pond
comfortable
or a
giving. them the
nice
option. That's
stream
what it
running
is.
through my backyard, do I
think
want
most
a
people do
post
that.
with a sign on it? Probably, hell no, it's not happening.
Because you want the nature.
First thing
Right.
that would happen if I had to put it up,
You take.
when you guys are gone, out comes the
Taking it down.
sawzall, boom,
Yeah,
gone,
but that's fine. That's your-
bonfire time.
But then that's what.
And
you're
that's what
doing.
it's.
But then why do it? It's stupid. It's just to do something to have somebody rip it down after. Picture yourself in a nice lake up in Vermont. And there's a post with a sign on it.
Well, I think that
telling you that it's
we're
water.
past the post now.
They
don't we?
might, they probably do that.
No, they don't. My kids up in Maine, no, there's nothing like that anywhere unless it's public property or a property that you can go hike on and you can do things.
Right. That's where.
It's your private yard. You already know that there's wetlands. You already have gone through the process of purchasing and looking at the maps, just like we have here. When you bought your house, you went over all that stuff, right?
I don't remember going through that stuff with the wetlands, but it was a
Well, I'm
long
sure
time ago.
your insurance company did, because they're gonna wanna know. if
I
there's
knew there was
wetlands.
wetlands there, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure that I was informed
What
of
is it meant?
exactly,
Yeah.
right. I was definitely
Yeah.
informed that it was wetlands back then, but it was a long time ago and,
I knew because I investigated, and that's how I started with
Right.
wetlands.
it was a big process when I moved here. There was a lot going on.
If you do go for that, I mean, the homeowner should definitely get to choose.
So,
where it goes.
so what are we thinking? Require, not require, optional,
All right, it sounds to me like the board's indecisive on this one.
okay?
We never done this before on any other application. I think we should have a more in-depth conversation if you want to make this a standard process on the wetlands.
It's not so much making it standard.
Okay,
Again, it's all about the circumstance.
okay.
If you guys think the wetland on the property is significant enough, if you think the location of the activity relative to it is significant enough,
All right, so
that's why I entertain it. So I don't want to
So-
beat the dead horse, so.
on this application, it would be 2 attached to a tree, affixed to a tree. Or a 4x4,
No
if
post.
that's,
No post.
it'll be
No-
up to the homeowner, I don't care if the homeowner
Yeah,
wants
they,
to post.
they
let them
wouldn't
post.
need a post, I don't
Okay.
think, for this.
Who would be in favor of that for this application? I'm fine with it for this application.
I'm fine with it. I really did like the idea of giving them the option.
No, no post, just on the tree, affixed to a tree.
Let them decide.
Yeah, let them decide where to put it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I'm absolutely.
You're
I
okay?
have an alternative.
Go ahead.
Yes, but what about putting it on, and maybe this doesn't work for every site, like putting it on public property where the wetland is influenced near the home site or near the site, like at the outside. I know
No,
on
and
this
public
site,
property, yeah.
right outside the driveway, and then the river goes under the road. So right on Codfish Hill, we could put, we could put this, and the homeowner would see it because they drive in their driveway every day. But it's not on their property. It's not outside.
So you talking aesthetics again? You know what, that's a whole conversation for.
Just that it's more in a
7
public
o'clock
place.
one night.
Because it's a
Yeah.
public water.
Yep. I say we focus on this application here now.
Okay.
And then I know what you're saying. I think public consumption, I feel differently. So, so for this application, you're okay with it?
Whatever you guys want.
So,
Then,
real quick question.
Yes.
I don't get a vote. anymore.
Legally, are we allowed to require
Because I'm
something
the
like this?
alternate and our vote.
I did not hear that. I'm sorry.
Legally, are we allowed to require this?
there's no, if that, I guess the way you could say it, you can answer that is if the applicant doesn't like if the applicant doesn't like this condition in your approval, they can appeal it.
Right.
That would be their recourse for it if they think that it is unjust or that if this requirement is overstepping your bounds, they could say, I don't agree with how this approval is written, this comment, this condition should be taken out. I have never seen that happen before. And I would be furthermore inclined to think that any conditions that you guys would make would be on the basis of good reasoning to not be overbearing and assert whatever, like essentially go on a power trip.
Right.
You guys aren't, that's not your intent. Your intent is to just make a decision and have awareness. That would be my word for it, if you wanted to phrase it that way, take that as you will.
How do you feel, Mark?
I was okay with
Okay.
this one, or I like the option too.
Okay. All right, so we'll include on this one affixed to a tree. It sounds like the majority is leaning that way on this application.
So
We're not making a boilerplate. Each application will
it would not
be
be.
viewed separately.
It would not.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
so I would say for this one, I would say environmentally, can that be passed on to me again, whatever it is? A town of Bethel environmentally sensitive area shield shall be affixed to any tree along the easternmost limit of disturbance
There you go.
in such a way where it would be visible from eye height.
Yes.
And that placement is at the discretion
Right.
of the applicant slash developer slash property owner, whatever they would be.
And that's fine.
That's
fine.
And that would be something that I would look at when I go up there. Kathy, if you are still awake out there in Zoom land.
Even your cat went to sleep.
Do you want me to catch that or did you get that?
Well, replay. It's
I'll
being
write it.
recorded.
I got it. I'll
Okay.
write it.
All right, so let's move along here. Everyone's had a chance to read this. Any other questions or comments?
Any other conditions?
Nico,
Everything
you
else is
pointed
good?
out something and I apologize, a date.
Yeah, it's just.
Was that noted?
David got it.
So that was on page 3 of 4. That would be a change from February 28th.
And then
28 to 2020.
we need to put a number 11. I do not know how to word it. I put applicant to confirm that the application is in agreement with Wright Pierce concerning test pit.
Right, so how you would word that is the applicant shall verify that all comments from Wright Pierce Engineering are addressed to their satisfaction for engineering.
Perfect. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor of approving this application,
We need
pointing
a-
at me.
I'm sorry, we need a motion first.
I thought I was making a motion to approve it.
Oh, okay, I thought you were voting, sorry.
No, I
Keep a
thought we
motion.
are
No,
making,
you gotta
a-
make a motion and then you vote on the motion.
I make a motion to approve
Yes.
this application based on the comments and with the stipulations in this memo dated March 28th, 2022. With reason for approval is as outlined on page 4.
Right, so that would be 12 conditions, and then your reasons would be 1 through 3 in accordance with section 4.4.1 4.4.4 of the regs. And we would need a second on that.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Abstain? Application passes.
5-0. Thank you very much.
All right, special meeting, commission business, regular meeting minutes, make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of February 28th.
Second.
All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against? Abstain. The next one I need to abstain for, I was not on the site walk, and I don't know who was, so who was, wasn't.
So that would be Laura and Nico that could vote on this one. That vote aye, that is.
To accept the meeting minutes.
Right.
For the walk, you have to make a motion.
And-
first. I don't think I can.
And I would say, now that I'm thinking about it, if you were to have, let's see, you would be seating,
No.
no, you would be seating Pat for either Kevin or Greg, so that way you had, right, because,
But she's
Right.
absent, so we don't have a quorum.
so,
we
so,
have to-
so I would say we would table.
Okay,
voting on this.
we'll table, you don't need a motion, do you? need a
Nope.
motion? We'll table the Inland Wetland Commission special meeting minutes for the site walks on 3/18. We'll move that to our
Very special.
April 28th meeting, April
25th.
25th meeting. We got enough on it. Okay, is there any other staff comments?
Nope.
Okay, any other comments, questions, concerns from committee members?
Nothing.
Questions, comments, cries of disbelief. My
Yeah.
CrossFit always used to say.
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn meeting.
Second.
All those in favor,
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, abstain. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Extremely late.